Is a presentation of ABC Sports. This year, from Sarajevo, Yugoslavia to Los Angeles, California, the ABC Olympic tradition continues. ABC Sports presents the world's greatest automobile race, an American tradition of the Memorial Day weekend. The 68th running of the Indianapolis 500. It's the world's biggest annual one-day sports event, a gathering of 400,000 people and more. But why? What makes it so special? Is it the luxury cars and luxury people streaming in from all over the world? Is it Paul Newman in the flesh as part of the race? Or is it an annual convention of motorcyclists? Or is it the denizens of the infield at Turn 1, the snake pit as it's called? Well, it's all those people. But it's mostly Indiana Hoosiers come to see the great drivers dare the concrete walls of their old beloved Indy. Many have driven well elsewhere, but flinch when they drive close to those walls. The crowd comes to cheer old favorites, old champions, and to see which new ones can pass the test. They come to see spectacular spins, but they want the man to win in the end over the dark forces that could destroy him out there. Indy's memories of the very first race and Ray Haroon inventing the rear-view mirror to win the day. Indy is special because of the speed and the immense crowd and what it means to a driver to win this most famous of all races. And it's special because here, more than in any other race, the crowd senses the danger and identifies with the driver. And the spectator goes home exhilarated and relieved if all the men come home safely from the course. It's 8 o'clock at night now in Indianapolis as we come to you live from the racetrack. It's been raining. Less than 6 hours ago, 400,000 people and more were gathered here as 33 cars and drivers competed for this year's championship of the Indianapolis 500. Now, they're all gone. I've been surrounded here for some time by 260,000 empty seats and many tons of trash and debris. But what a day it has been. A day of events and surprises, of emotions that range from high excitement to, well, stunned silence. It began, as always, with nostalgia, with familiar events that give Indy a sense of continuity, a remembrance of other times and other races, of other Memorial Day weekends going back perhaps all the way to, well, when you were a kid. It began with Jim Nabors singing Back Home Again in Indiana.
Back home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still burning bright through the sycamores for me. The newborn hay sends all its fragrance through the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the moonlight on the wall there, how I long for my Indiana home.
Yes, at this moment, tradition hangs heavy in the air here at Indy, giving it the sense of security, of something that through all the years of increasing speeds and technical advances still stays the same in many ways. Like the traditional words about to be spoken by Mrs. Mary Hullman, the widow of the man who made the Speedway what it is today.
Gentlemen, start your engine.
Now, the roar from the throats of literally hundreds of engine start. Looks like everybody has gotten their engines underway. A.J. Foyt, looking for his 5th win in the Indianapolis 500. Nobody else has ever won 4. Familiar car, number 14. Number 6, Rick Mears. He won this race in 1979. There's Johnny Rutherford way back in the 10th row. The 3-time winner of the race, Lone Star Jr. It's on his helmet. Now the wide scene as they are almost ready to move out. There goes Mario Andretti on the outside of the 2nd row, remember, seeking his 2nd win 15 years after he won in 1969. Everyone apparently safely started. Pit crews scrambling, getting out of the way. The race course belongs to the drivers now, and to the pace car, which will lead them until it's time to go. As the crowd looks on now, let's meet the drivers in the first 2 rows. On the pole is a sometime golfer and the defending champion, Tom Sneva, a former public school teacher, now the fastest qualifier in the history of Indy, more than 210 miles an hour. In the middle of row 1, Howdy Holmes, Sneva's teammate, owner of an advertising and marketing company, but most at home behind the wheel, and now for the first time with the kind of equipment that could win the race for it. On the outside of row 1, former champion Rick Mears, trained in the bumpy world of off-road racing, now as smooth a driver as you'll find, looking for his 2nd win here. Mears. Row 2, Michael Andretti, the 21-year-old pride of a racing family, a babe among masters in his exalted starting position today in his first 500. Andretti the younger. At age 47, Gordon Johncock's hair is grayer, but the driving talent of this 2-time Indianapolis champion still shines brightly. He's in the middle of row 2, Johncock. And Mario Andretti looks more like a Roman centurion as the years go by. Today, he starts in the same row as his son, still seeking that elusive 2nd Indy win. His only triumph came 15 long years ago. Let's consider the 3rd row now. As they're on the track, on the inside, a road racer from Colombia on the right of your screen, who got his experience in England, Roberto Guerrero. Next to him, Jeff Brabham, the son of the former multiple world champion, Jack Brabham. And on the outside, Herm Johnson, who finished 9th 2 years ago, but passed up the race last year. Now to row 4, which contains more years of Indy experience than any other row in the starting field. Al Unser Sr. could become only the 2nd 4-time winner of Indy, joining A.J. Foyt in a most exclusive club. This is his 19th appearance at Indianapolis. Al Sr. Next to him, Danny Ungaius is 40 pounds slimmer, very fit for another try. Twice in the past 3 years, Ungaius has survived crashes in this race. Danny Ungaius. The thoroughbreds of horse owner A.J. Foyt race at Churchill Downs, less than 100 miles from here. But A.J., less than a year away from his 50th birthday, still races at Indy, aiming for a 5th win in his 27th appearance. Well, they call this the parade lap, but it's unlike any parade you ever saw. And the participants, frankly, couldn't care less what the audience thinks of their parade. They have work to do. Dangerous, difficult work. And soon. Well, there it is, one of the great sights in American sport. The car still in the parade lap before this immense crowd anticipating the start of the Indianapolis 500. I'm in our ABC commentary booth with my colleague Sam Posey, a man who has driven at Indianapolis and Le Mans, for that matter, most of the important racing circuits of the world. Sam, it seems to me that not only only is this the fastest Indy field in history, but also there's more quality of drivers and cars going all the way back through the rows.
That's it. I mean, you can talk about the favorites in the front rows, but deep in the pack there are people that might bear watching. Let me give you an example. Danny Sullivan, a man about whom a great deal has been written lately. He's a jet setter with what is said to be an insatiable fondness for women. He has a secret plan that he hopes will win him this race. There's Kevin Cogan, who's driving the only all-American car in this race. Most of the cars are English. Fittingly, it's a Dan Gurney creation. That could be something very special. And lastly, a guy, you know, I don't like to make predictions, but the man I'm about to mention I think is going to be fourth. I'm going to go out on that much of a limb. Al Holbert. He was the winner of Le Mans last year, and he has practiced for more laps here than anyone else in this month. He's done 1,600 miles of practice. He is going to be fourth, Jim.
Well, you said it a couple of times. And there are still others. Let's take a look at some of them. A touch of the continent here. Teo Fabi, last year's pole sitter, sometimes seen on the ski slopes of Europe.
Well, he was once a member of the Italian national ski team. You know, last year he seemed to have a message about this place that no one else had. He started on the pole, but this year the magic seems to be gone.
Look at Al Unser Jr. The kid still looks like a teenager.
With his wife Shelley there. Last year, Al drove brilliantly, but that brilliance was obscured by the controversial blocking incident in the latter part of the race.
What a great young driver. There's one of your guys, Bobby Rahal.
I'm surprised he doesn't have a briefcase with him here. He has a button-down mind. He knows the engineering behind the car, how the sponsorships are organized, a big future.
And way back in the 10th row, Lone Star JR.
And you know, Jim, I think, and I hate to say this, despite his 3 wins, and of course the 4 wins of his car owner, A.J. Foyt, I don't think Johnny's got much of a chance this year. So far, he has made fewer than 20 laps of practice in this car. Count him out.
Now let's pick up the remaining rows. You see last year's pole sitter, Teo Fabi, in the middle of that 5th row, young Al Unser on the outside. Row 6 there, featuring 2 road racers, Al Holbert and Bobby Rahal, and Tony Bettenhausen, the namesake of his famous father. In row 7, a racing writer turned driver, Pat Bedard, the oldest driver in the race, 50-year-old Dick Simon, and the veteran Pancho Carter. Lots of talent in row 8 with Chip Ganassi, former world Formula One champion Emerson Fittipaldi, and the popular young Mexican Jose Lagarza. Row 9, Gelhausen, Brayton, and Kogan. Row 10 there, Danny Sullivan, Derek Daly, and a 3-time Indy champion, Johnny Rutherford. And in the last row, Snyder, Firestone, and Neifel, who just got in the race the other day when Jacques Villeneuve's car was withdrawn. Now, let's meet our other commentators, starting with 3-time world champion Jackie Stewart, whose views you'll be hearing a number of times during our telecast. Jackie?
Memorial Weekend is not celebrated in Scotland, so since 1966 this great day has only meant for me the Indy 500. It's more apple pie and ice cream than anything else that I see in America, but this year it's more special than ever before because of what I believe are the excessively high speeds around this track. The drivers, on the other hand, are extremely exciting, a new generation almost to have come to this 500. But if I sit here right now and look out, I only think of one thing. I hope and I pray that it'll be a safe race.
I'm Bill Fleming. One of the more interesting statistics we're going to be following today is how much time does a driver spend off the track. That doesn't mean just in the pits, but how speedy is he getting into the pits and getting out of the pits? The man who was most efficient at that last year was Tom Sneven. As you know, he won the race.
This fuel calibration gauge on all of the tanks here on pit road help the crews keep abreast of how much of the 285 gallons they've allocated for the race remains. I'm Jack Arute on pit road, and when fuel consumption becomes a question, we'll be here to cover it.
I'm Larry Newber at the entrance to Gasoline Alley. On any other day, this is the view from the cockpit that the drivers would like to have, going back to that historic area. Today, unfortunately, if you exit this way off the racetrack back to the garage area, what that means is that you have lost the race. 32 drivers will leave the speedway through this path. Only one will leave the way everybody wants to leave, and that is out through Victory Lane.
I'm Ray Gandolf, and for the past couple of weeks I've been doing some off-the-track stories related to the race. They're distant relatives, second cousins maybe, but they're good stories. I think you'll like them.
And now there is a look at the field from the front. Coming right at you past the start-finish line, the pace car, Pontiac Fiero, well out in front of the field. There's with that first row of Tom Sneva, Howdy Holmes, and Rick Mears. You've been in a car at this time, Sam. Try to remember it for us.
Jim, I think what's worse about it is you can't bring the car up to speed. There's no way you can get, it's not like baseball, perhaps where you could go out and throw the ball or swing the bat, or golf where you could hit a few balls. Here you go into this thing cold. These speeds are nowhere nearly high enough to get any feel for how the car will be when the race begins. That makes it very, very hard.
Isn't it remarkable in a sport of 200-mile-an-hour speeds how much patience it takes?
Well, and we may see that become the fulcrum of the race today, Jim, because fuel consumption is an issue here. If you were to run the entire race flat out, it's possible that you might run out of gas. There are rules that can, or fuel, there are rules that limit how much fuel you may use during the race. So yes, patience will be a very big factor.
Tom Sneva right there, car number 1. Next to him, Howdy Holmes, the blue and white 41, his teammate. And in the golden car, Rick Mears, number 6.
And Jim, that front row, Howdy Holmes there, the least experienced of all the drivers in this leading group. And there's some concern. He's a very, very fine driver, but he's never raced at the front at Indianapolis before. And so the more experienced drivers like Andretti and Mears are afraid they might get trapped behind him and let Sneva get loose and establish a big lead.
Look at that. More seats here than ever before. There are now seats for 260,000 people. With the crowd in the infield waiting for the green now. Looks like they're going to get it.
Just a few seconds away.
Flagman Dwayne Sweeney. He has the green flag in his hand. Cars will come into view in a moment here. And the green flag is out there racing at Indianapolis. Rick Mears in the golden car going for the lead. Mears has the lead. Behind him, Sneva and Michael Andretti from the inside of the second row.
Already, Jim, we have a new record. Mears is now leading his 6th consecutive Indy 500. No man has ever done that. It may be a day of records. I have a feeling about it.
The bombs going off. Once again, remember, that's no accident on the race course or anything. It's just the ceremonial bombs indicating to the surrounding countryside that the Indianapolis 500 is again underway. 200 laps lie ahead of them.
Oh!
Little puff of smoke there.
Yes.
From Sneva.
Absolutely. Well, that's untoward, of course, at this early stage. A quick word about the track. It rained very heavily night before last year. The track was literally scoured clean almost by that, so they'll be trying to feel their way on a track that feels unfamiliar to their car.
Quite remarkable how far ahead of the pack those two cars are already.
Yeah, that's right. Now I'm speculating. Let's try to figure out what might be wrong with Sneva. We didn't see that puff of smoke again, Jim. It might have been something just a little bit overfilled. You know what I mean? An oil tank or something. He seems to be fine, and he is in Mears' draft right now.
Rick Mears, who won in 1979. Tom Sneva, the defending champion. Coming into the pits, Michael Andretti.
Oh, no. By far the most. This is Jeff Brabham.
Correction on that.
It is Jeff Brabham.
The colors of the car are similar. This is number 18, Jeff Brabham, spotting 1 point right on that.
In fact, Michael Andretti is running 3rd. He's 3rd in your picture right here, and he is in good shape. In fact, how long has it been, Jim, since a rookie ran the race that Michael Andretti is running right this minute? Well ahead of his dad, I might say.
At age 21.
Okay, and Jim, we have a new absolute lap record here. The leader is Mears is going over 200 miles an hour at this point. The previous high was Sneva at this time last year, 197. So Rick Mears, you see him there in the yellow car, over 200 miles an hour. And mind you, the car is full of fuel right now.
Jeff Brabham in the pits, right there, car number 18, son of the famous Formula One racing driver. So we have had the first competitive 200-mile-an-hour lap in Indianapolis history.
Incredible, and this is a very good race. Now, whatever was wrong with Sneva at the outset does not seem to be wrong now. Remember some personal rivalries here. Rick Mears is the man that took over the slot on the Roger Penske team. The man following him right now, Tom Sneva, was fired from. So there are personal rivalries as well as those among the car owners.
Mears still out in front.
Both these men.
Michael Andretti and his father right behind him.
I know it. Isn't that magnificent? Can you imagine, Jim, the experience of seeing your son ahead of you in the early part of the Indy 500?
The third and fourth cars, the blue and gold car and the red car. Michael Andretti and his father, Mario Andretti, behind him. A lot of drama lies ahead of us here at Indianapolis.
I imagine, it's hard for me, even though I am a father, to imagine, Jim, the emotions that must be running through Mario now, because as obviously occupied as he is with the job of driving, the fact that his son is right ahead of him on the road, he's probably judging his performance, and I imagine a little part of him is hoping nothing goes wrong.
No way I could imagine being in that position. It just isn't. So there are the four leaders in the early laps of the Indianapolis 500. Mears and Sneva and Andretti, father and son. Back at Indy, and there is Michael Andretti in the blue and gold car, passing Tom Sneva for second place. The duel's been going on for that second spot, and now Michael Andretti, the 21-year-old, youngest driver in the race, remember, has taken over second place.
An amazing pass. You know, Jim, you described him at the top of the show as a babe among masters. I wonder if maybe we shouldn't be revising that estimate right now.
The way he's driving, we certainly should. Rick Mears, of course, still leading the race in the Roger Penske-prepared number 6 car. Some of the crowd looking on. There's Jeff Brabham in the pits. The steering wheel, you know, is removable for safety purposes and for quickness, getting in and out of the car, even in the pit area. There's the look down the straightaway. Let's have another look at that pass. Look at Michael.
Well, that was the absolutely perfect pass. He was faster through the turn than Sneva was, drafted him for a moment coming down the early part of the front straight here, and made an absolute copybook pass. Wonder who he learned that from.
I can't imagine. Every year we have many people watch, I think, who are not dyed-in-the-wool motor racing fans. Drafting, of course, means getting in the slipstream of the car, and you get an actual boost in horsepower, right? And so,
yes, because the car, oops, here comes Gordon Johncock into the pits. This is unexpected, Jim. It's way too early in the race. We would expect the car to go about 24, 25 laps before a stop.
Johncock, remember, a two-time winner of this race, started in the middle of the second row. One of the favorites here.
And one of the fastest, too, in practice. He did run a lap of 2:09 or I think 2:10 just barely the other day. So this is very discouraging. This is a man that could have won the race.
George Snyder going by in that number 4. He's back in the back a bit. Up front, though, it is Rick Mears and Michael Andretti moving in on Mears. Oh, this kid is really moving.
Yeah, and this is the acid test, too, because it is in heavy traffic. Running alone on the track, that is something Michael Andretti's been able to do all month during practice. He has never had an occasion to run in a pressure situation like this.
Now, is George Snyder there holding up Mears a little bit, allowing Michael to move in?
Well, I don't think he's doing that intentionally. Remember,
because he's slower.
Yeah. All right, well, now this is critical, of course, because Mears is not clear and Andretti is stuck behind. This could make him vulnerable to Sneva, who's right behind Mears.
That's right.
Because when you're held up in a turn,
right behind Andretti.
I'm sorry, Andretti. If you're held up in a turn, as Michael was, you see?
There goes Sneva.
Yep.
The white car number 1 moving right alongside, and now past Michael Andretti.
Terrific race.
But Andretti driving intelligently, not just going flat out saying he's not going to get by me. When it's inevitable, he goes.
Oh, yes, and I don't think here's Tommy Holmes.
Yep. Teammate of Tom Sneva started in the middle of the first row, into the pits. Well, looks reasonably, well, they raised it up. The pneumatic jack, so they got a problem there.
Well, that's a disappointment. Howdy, of course, doing so well. It's, you know, Jim, I don't believe that when Michael Andretti passed that it was a mistake on his part. There are times when you just get in a situation and the driver behind you sets you up perfectly, and that's exactly what Sneva did.
That's my point, and Michael accepted it. When the guy beats you, let him beat you, then go after him again later.
Exactly. It's not the last lap yet.
Far from it. There's Sneva in the white car. Remember, he's in second place. Mears is still 200 yards up in front of him. There, he flashed by. There's Sneva. There goes Michael Andretti.
Jim, you know, the leading 3 cars are all these March cars. They're all made in England. They're all the same kind of car, and they have virtually the same engine, same horsepower, about 750. So when you see differences out here, it's It's differences in the driver, and differences in the way the cars are set up at this particular moment in the race.
So let's see, I believe of the 33 cars, 30 of them are marches. These cars you're talking about made in England.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
Look at Holmes. They've now got the bonnet off the car, and it's going to take a while.
He must be dejected because this has got to be, has had to have been the best opportunity that he might have ever had to win this race. Driving for the Mears team that has prepared his car and Tom Sneevers so brilliantly all during the month.
The Mears team was here with great success a few years ago with Johnny Rutherford winning a race for them. They've been out of it for a few years and come back this year with great power in their usual organization. The 400,000 still look on. We're at Indy.
This is what they call the spark box, the ignition system in Gordon Johncock's car, and this is why he came in. He was getting an intermittent kind of thing with his ignition. Of course, the engine was cutting in and out. As you can see, it's a quick disconnect. You've got a 6-prong, a 4-prong, and a 2-prong plug. This part goes to the distributor itself. They were able to get out of the car, put another replacement in, he's back out, and fortunately running very smoothly. So this was the culprit.
Okay, Bill Fleming with that report from the pits on Gordon Johncock's problem. There are the standings as of now. The race goes on. Look at the racing on the course here at Indianapolis. There's the leader, Rick Mears, right behind him, Tom Sneva. Passing a slower car here. No, Sneva got tucked in behind. He couldn't quite make it.
That's right. That slower car is driven by Dick Simon, the oldest man in the race, Jim, 50 years old. There's Sneva, though. He won't take too long to get by him. However, Sneva is now vulnerable to the same kind. In other words, he stalled out a little bit. And here comes Michael Andretti with his dad, Mario. Mario is now right behind Michael. You'll see them there. There's Mario pulling out to pass Michael.
And the father has passed the son, and now passes Dick Simon, or is about to, yes, does pass Dick Simon, and next we'll have the youngest driver, did not quite pass Dick Simon,
no,
and to drop back behind him.
No, that's showing off, is that
Michael, I think, pulling into the pits. We'll double check it, that looked like Michael's car coming in.
Peeling out. Now, is this too early for the first pit stops, is the question.
Yep, there he is.
Yes, it seems to me, Jim, unless he's been using fuel at a tremendous rate, something is wrong. And yet it looks routine.
It certainly does so far.
Now, all right, this shouldn't take more than about 18 seconds. These early stops, by the way, you see they don't change tires. The fuel flows in very fast, Jim, because of what they call the head pressure. There's so much fuel in the tank, see, 14 seconds, that's a terrific stop. And that's why they don't change tires in the first stops, because they know that they're going to be able to refuel so fast, they don't want to waste time changing the tire.
Now the question is whether the other lead cars are burning fuel at almost the same rate as Michael Andretti. If so, they'll be coming in for pit stops very shortly. What a job these pit crews do here, as a matter of fact.
Yes, when you think of what they're able to accomplish in a short time, just 5 men doing the work.
Sometimes it's as much Mikhail Baryshnikov as Roger Penske, as a matter of fact, as Jackie Stewart tells us.
It might seem that ballet dancing is a long way from the sport of motor racing. But the grace, the poise, and the elegance in many ways are related. If one of the dancers is out of step, the whole performance is affected. Here you see poise and economy of movement also in a sophisticated form. Last year, Tom Sneva's team had no time for error. The choreography was regimented to perfection, but as we do know, things can go wrong to spoil the show. When Lloyd Ruby pitted, his fuel line was not disconnected as it should have been. This error was to cost him victory. He never did win the 500. Jerry Grant overshot his pit and stopped at his next-door neighbours. His mechanics had to run back and forward with wheels and equipment. He even took on the other fella's fuel. He was penalised and lost his chance for victory. When Rick Mears stopped, his fuel fell over the car. It spilled. It went over his mechanics and the driver. It ignited and created havoc in the pit lane. The mechanics waving his arm was on fire. Also was the driver. There's no flame from an alcohol fire. Then in his rush to leave the pits in 1982, he missed George Hen Johnson's speed, and the two cars came in contact with no great effect, but it could have been a disaster. The darling of the 500 last year was Theo Fabi. He could have won, but fuel was everywhere. A valve had stuck open. The engine was still running as he stepped out of the car in disgust. He finally switched it off. It was no win for him. On the other hand, What this pit stop produced was a victory for Gordon Johncock in '82, stage managed to perfection. Under the ultimate pressure, his performers were never out of step. No dropped wrenches, each wheel tightened, no fuel wasted, and any surplus that was there was quickly washed away by water. He kept his engine running, engaged first gear at the right moment and drove off to receive a standing ovation when, finally, the curtain fell. So what happens here in the pits is not at all far away from these beautifully synchronized dancers. Each movement must be strictly orchestrated.
And now those pit stops are continuing. There's A.J. Foyt. A.J. running back in the pack at the moment in car number 14, looking, remember, for his 5th Indianapolis 500 victory at the age of 49.
Jim, to the driver, these pit stops are not the calm things they may look like to us. They're very disorienting because when you've been out on the track at 200 miles an hour, the track is very smooth. The other cars are going about the same speed that you are. Of course, here's Rick Mears in the Roger Penske pit.
He's the leader in the race, or was until he came in here.
The chaos is when you're sitting still. You feel that fuel flowing into that tank behind you. It actually presses you forward a bit in the seat and cools your back for a split second, incidentally.
Okay, we've had Michael Andretti into the pits. Now we've had Rick Mears into the pits, but Tom Sneva is still on the track. Coming down low, however. Let's see. Doesn't look like he... Yes, is he? Look at that move coming into the pit.
Sneva, I have been watching this man for the last few years come in and out of the pits, and notice how bumpy that pit road is, by the way. He has got to be the most ambitious man in and out of the pits. I mean, that was a very dangerous move that he made, a very gutsy move, because he came so close to the end of that pit wall. But he does this all the time in the pits.
Dangerous to somebody unlike Sneva. To him, he knew what he was doing.
True. Everything is relative, and this is the hardest charging man, I think, who's raced at Indy for the last 4 or 5 years. A very heady driver. He keeps his emotions in one compartment and his, his logic in another.
Used to call him Mr. Second Place simply because he finished second 3 times here, which is not so bad. Here it is again in slow motion.
All right, now, maybe it doesn't look that dangerous, I'll grant, but when he's still going 190 miles an hour right here, and you see he really just pulls in at the last minute, and if anything had come just a little bit long, and he T-boned into the end of that wall.
Okay, now here we have Mario Andretti into the pits. So the son has been in, now the father is in. All of the leaders pitting here under the green, and they appear to be using fuel at a rather fast rate.
Take a close look at this car because it's a Lola car, one of the very few cars that aren't Marches in the race.
And off goes Mario. All of the leaders back on the race course.
Ray Haroon averaged 74.59 miles an hour in winning the Indianapolis 500 in 1911. Tom Sneva averaged 162.117 miles an hour in winning last year's race.
We're back at Indianapolis where the leader following the first pit stops is now Mario Andretti at age 44. The sentimental favorite here always. Of course, he won the race once, but you look down through the years and you see next to his name notations like engine detonation, lost wheel, burned piston, flag, wreck, out of fuel, wrecked, flag, broken header, engine seized, accident. Year after year, time after time, something has always happened to frustrate Mario Andretti's bid for a second win in the Indianapolis 500. And to add to the drama this year, one of the men pursuing him fairly closely is his own son. Let's meet them both. The driver of car number 3 is 44 years old and has won Indianapolis and the World Grand Prix Championship. He is Mario Andretti, driving today in his 19th Indy 500. The driver of car number 99 is 21 years old, the youngest participant in this year's race. He is Michael Andretti, son of Mario. As a kid growing up in Nazareth, PA, Michael liked tennis and football and water skiing. But he also liked what his dad did.
Ever since I can remember, I felt like I wanted to become a race car driver. I started when I was 9 in go-karts, but when I really started thinking seriously about it was when I was around, I think, 17. That was my nervous stage where did I have it or didn't I? So what I did, I went to about 3 or 4 race driving schools, and that's where I really judged myself on whether I had it or not. And luckily I was always the quickest or one of the quickest students at these schools, so that's where I felt this is great. This is what I want to do, and I want to go for it.
From that start in go-karts, Michael drove on and by last year had become the Formula Mondial champion and drove his first IndyCar race at Las Vegas. His father made him aware of the realities of racing.
There's certain values here that have to be kept in mind at all times, and that is the value of life really has to be forever present, in the sense that you don't just figure, oh, the heck with it, we just go for it. You do that within reason. And if you do that within reason, you have a good chance of coming away from this thing with a long career. But if you don't, sooner or later it's going to bite. And it can bite pretty hard.
Caution at 200 miles an hour is a difficult thing to learn, but Michael seemed to have done it when he qualified for today's race faster than his father, but he still marvels at his dad.
It's just amazing the drive that he has. He's been in this now for over 20 years, and I think he's got more drive than a lot of younger guys coming up. He wants to win, and he just, all winter long, when he's waiting for his new car, he's like a kid that just can't wait to see his new toy. Enthusiasm has to rub off, especially if you have a close rapport with your kids, which I think I always had. I don't feel we had that much of a generation gap. That's something I never really felt with my kids. And that part, I think, has been very important in our forming years. When we're talking, we're in many ways talking the same language. I don't profess to know the music the way they do it, but it's fine. There are certain areas that they're different, yes. But modern music, that is. But again, some of the essential things, the more important things, the basic things, I think we're really talking the same language.
The value of life, Mario Andretti said. Remembering its value, or you're laying it on the line. Mario Andretti leading the Indianapolis 500 right now. In second place, Tom Sneva in the white car. Behind him now, Al Unser Jr., number 7, has passed Rick Mears for third place.
It's an interesting repetition, isn't it, at the end of the race last year, Jim, when Tom Sneva and Al Unser Jr. were so close together. There's Al Unser Jr. just showing Sneva that he is there. That's all, trying to rattle him a little bit by dodging around behind him, occupying Sneva's mirrors.
Now let's see if that other car is going to get in between them. At least it did momentarily. Al Unser's in the black car, number 7. There he is moving down to get past that car at age 22. In his second Indianapolis 500. There's Sneva, number 1, the defending champion in the race.
So that's the lead, Jim.
The lead,
very, at this point, of course, how meaningful is it really? But Tom Sneva, look at that.
Wild spin, that is Spike Gelhausen. Spike, it looks like he's pulled out of it all right this time. That is the third time we've seen something like that happen to him. 1978 he wrecked here, 1980 he wrecked. Here it is again.
Jim, here he comes off the turn. There's one might think that it was a driving error there. It looks as if he just came off wrong, but having driven these cars, Jim, I don't think you can ever say for sure that it's a driving error because there's so many different things that can go wrong with one of these very complex cars.
Okay, and again, Tom Sneva has slipped past Mario Andretti into the lead in the 1984 Indianapolis 500. The yellow flag is out. So we're going to take a break here. We'll be back for a lot more racing at Indy. Again, we're back at Indy. They're still under the yellow flag right now after Spike Gelhausen's spin. And again, he appears to be all right. We have the facility through contract radio to talk to Gordon Johncock. Sam, see if you can get him now.
Gordon, this is Sam Posey. Can you hear me?
Yes, Sam. I have a copy on you, Sam.
Okay. How is the crosswind? Is it windy?
Yes, it is. We do have a crosswind, especially coming on a 2 that's pushing the car up to the wall pretty bad. And we also have a oiling condition out here. There's several cars, evidently, that are oiling. They oiled the first part of the race, and then it kind of quit, and now it's back to being a little oily again.
Has Gelhausen's crash put any extra debris on the track?
Negative. He didn't hit anything. He just made several spins and slid up to the wall. No damage.
Gordon, I'm sorry you had that problem early on. How do you feel about things now?
Well, the car seems to be working pretty well right now. All we can do is just keep plugging away here and run as fast as we can. Hopefully we can make up a few laps, I don't know.
Thank you very much, Gordy. Good luck to you.
Gordon Johncock speaking with Sam from his race car. We said you'd hear periodic reports from Jackie Stewart. We're quarter of the way, 50 laps, and here's Jackie.
Looking back after 50 laps, the first thing that impressed me was Rick Mears. This is the 6th year of him straight leading this race. This is impressive. The other two impressive things, Al Unser Jr. has come from 15th position right up to 4th position right now. And Mario Andretti's son Michael driving a magnificent race, showing a little bit of inexperience, which you would expect in traffic, particularly when he was stalking Tom Sneva, who of course is the master at that. But Tom's car and Mario's car are so much better on the racetrack. They can drive on any part of the track. That's impressive. Guerrero from Colombia, by the way, is up into 5th position. He was the man that during qualification had part of his bodywork come undone and fly off the car. So that's pretty good that he's got himself up to 5th position here. Now let's have a look at the standings after 50 laps. So Mario Andretti is in the lead, Rick Mears 2nd, Tom Sneva 3rd, Al Unser Jr. in 4th position, Guerrero the rookie in 5th, and remember I did mention, we thought while he was qualifying when the body fell off that a Zeus fastener had come undone, but in fact we find out that air got underneath the bodywork and that was the reason for it. Danny Ongai is up to 6th, Senior is in 7th, Theo Fabi 8th, Michael Andretti is 9th, and Al Hobart, another rookie, making up the top 10. Now I'd like to run through the whole 33 cars here, but the Speedway have a problem in their scoring. They haven't been able to give us the rest of the field, so I do apologise for that. Cars out of the race. Jeff Brabham, sad for Australia after only one lap with a fuel line. Two-time world champion Emerson Fittipaldi from Brazil with an engine failure. He was out in 39. And Spike Gelhausen, he had a spin in lap 49. Now the leader's average speed so far, 186.657 miles per hour. We've only had one yellow flag, and now we're going to go green.
The green flag out again at Indianapolis. So they're racing again at speed. Mario Andretti, still the leader. Right behind him, though, that white car, number 1. Another car in between them now. Or no, wait a minute, that's Mears in between them, isn't it? Yeah, Mears in between them in 2nd place. So it's Mario, followed by Rick Mears, followed by number 1, Tom Sneva, followed by number 7, Al Unser Jr., moving low on Sneva right now.
That's as good as the racing gets. Look at them.
Boy. The red car is Mario Andretti. The yellow car is Rick Mears now taking the lead. The white car behind them is Sneva. The black car, Al Unser Jr. There are the 4 of them. Oh, is this racing or not? Now remember, at Indianapolis, they now closed up under the yellow flag as they went around, which years ago they were not able to do.
That's right. It does make for a much more exciting, if fractionally less pure race. The man who appears to be leading here at this point, Scott Brayton, is at least one lap behind. It's really the yellow car there of Rick Mears that is the leader at this point.
Father and son situation here getting more complex now as we have Andretti in 2nd place, immediately followed by the son of another driver. And of course by Sneva, who now moves ahead of Andretti. So it is now directly Andretti and the son of Al Unser in that order, in 3rd and 4th place.
Well, I said at the beginning, Tim, I thought there might be a little pacing because of the possibility of running out of fuel. I see no evidence of that. I can't remember as much of a cut and thrust race. You see Sneva pulling out past Brayton there.
And we also saw young Al about to pass Mario, I think. We'll get back to that.
Don't you have the feeling this is the best racing we've seen at Indianapolis
this year? It certainly is so far. Pure racing all the way.
Yeah, I think the fact that so many of the cars are virtually identical, as I said at the outset, 29 of these cars have the same chassis and the same engine.
There, number 7, the black car, is Al Unser Jr. He has moved past the red car, number 3, of Mario Andretti. So Al Unser Jr. in 3rd place.
And right behind is Roberto Guerrero from Colombia, the ex-Formula 1 driver, having his first taste of Indy competition. He's a rookie.
And driving very well.
There's Danny Sullivan in the center of your screen in the black car.
Look at the immensity, the size of the crowd. Penske looking on.
Penske making many of the strategic decisions that are essential to winning this race. Jim, long gone is the day when the driver wins it alone. And of course, Roger, as a brilliant businessman, has said, you know, he makes strategic decisions every day.
Look at this, Sneva closing in on Mears again. Nobody can pull away. Each time a leader seems to pull away for about one lap, the man behind him closes in again.
Right now, the factor here, I believe that's Tom Gloy. In between them, Jim, he's a rookie, and he pulls way out of the way. Yep. So, no interference there from Tom Gloy, the rookie, 37 years old, as he is lapped.
How close to that wall do they come exiting the turns?
Well, during the days of practice that I was here, Jim, I saw tire after tire with scuff marks on it, touching the wall. I would suspect that at least half the drivers in this race will touch the wall at some point or another.
But when they're not touching the wall, if they do it perfectly, how far are they from the wall? You're talking about 3 or 4 inches?
3 or 4 inches.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, the reason they pull well away from the wall going down the straight, as you see them doing now, is to reduce turbulence between the side of the car and the wall. That's the reason for that. And the little extra distance that you have to move to, you know, get the car out into the center of the road and back doesn't really mean anything.
And so it's Rick Mears in the lead, Tom Sneva in second place, and Al Unser Jr. in third place, and they couldn't be closer without touching.
Oh, this is absolutely magnificent racing. You see the black groove there that's starting to develop. The track, I reckon, is not in tip-top condition. It's a little bit oily. There's a crosswind that's causing the understeer, the front of the car to wash out a little bit as you come out of turn 2.
A crash. We can't pick it up yet. I can't see who it is. Parts everywhere. Yellow flag out. This could be a very bad. Oh, this is terrible.
Could be the worst crash that we have seen in Indy in years, Jim. I'm afraid the driver
rescue equipment in there as usual. I'm afraid.
It looks like
let's not say it. Let's say it until we are sure. Could be Pat Bedard, the racing writer turned driver, a man in his 40s. Yes, he's in there.
I'm afraid
he's in there in the front of the car. The engine gone.
Front gone.
However, that part is all in one piece.
Well, yes, it is. And these are survival.
Two of the worst crashes we ever saw were Tom Sneva and Danny Ungaias. Ungaias particularly, we thought might have been dead. Yeah. And he's back in the race. Sneva's only back but fighting for the lead.
Really?
Let's see, is his head moving?
I don't know, but it's very encouraging to see that survival capsule
and there's no fire.
Very much intact. There is no fire. There hasn't been serious fire here for quite a few years.
Yeah. Well, let's see what we have in slow-mo. See if we can see what happened. We just came in on the end of that. Still working on the driver. Tentatively identified as Pat Bedard. Well, you see that smoke. That's not it. Here it is over here.
Yeah.
Into the inner wall.
The inner wall.
Flying.
There. Incredible.
Well, you see it.
Violence. Well, now you know what happens when something goes wrong at 200 miles an hour. You know, sometimes, Jim, you really don't understand the speed.
But the flying parts, again, do dissipate the energy. They, in a sense, give the driver a chance, rather than a solid car that gives all the force to him.
Well, absolutely right. But it's only when you see something like that that the full knowledge of what 200 miles an hour means. Incredible.
Well, this one looks tough. Let's take a break. The yellow flag still out at Indianapolis, and that is the car, number 30, of Danny Sullivan. Now, something happened to Danny, presumably as a sort of aftermath of the terrible crash of Pat Bedard, on whom they are still working. Now, look at this.
All right, there's the debris, of course, from the Bedard accident. Now, watch the right of your screen, and you will Danny Sullivan appears going what it seems to be much too fast. He hits Roberto Guerrero. That's the white car just to the right of Sullivan, who's now getting up into the air. Other cars dodging. It wasn't serious, but then again, it looks like an accident that in some ways really need not have occurred had everyone slowed down enough.
Certainly could have been serious. Jackie Stewart's been watching all this. Get his reaction to it.
What you've just seen is not a racing car accident, it's like an aircraft accident. The total destruction of a car at that speed is incredible. As I speak to you now, we have had no reports on Patrick Bedard's condition. But really, in my opinion, it's a synonymous accident with these very high speeds that I spoke of at the opening. In my opinion, they are excessively high. Only last night I spoke to the great Parnelli Jones, and I spoke to A.J. Foyt, and I spoke to the man who's fastest round this speedway, Tom Sneaver. They all said that they were all going too fast, because if something did go wrong, it was difficult to see life expectancy being in the correct conditions. It's this type of accident that I think should convince us that we do have to go slower around this racetrack and lots others.
As Jackie said, there's still no report on Pat Bedard. That tells us this is a little earlier shot. Maybe we can tell more, Sam.
All right, you see that it's between turn 3 and 4. It's coming off turn 3. Now, let's watch here.
Into the inner wall. You'll see a flash of fire, I think.
Yeah.
Left side of your screen.
Yeah, that's it, all right. Now, that is not the fuel tank exploding. It could be friction, it could be the oil tank. And as we said earlier, the incredible energy that is absorbed by that tumbling and by the parts coming off, frankly, Jim, is what encourages me to hope for Pat. And I think if people want to see crashes like this at all, it's just because the enormity of a crash like this validates and proves the speed. Here's the crew.
His pit crew there, yeah. Now Pat on the stretcher being put into the ambulance. Well, you saw an illustration of seatbelt giving a man his only possible chance. Jackie Stewart with that.
It's unnecessary to tell a racing driver to wear seatbelts. They all do. It's essential. 19 years ago, I came to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and was introduced to the wearing of seatbelts in racing cars. Since then, I've always worn them in cars, both on the road and on the track. Of course, we need them in racing because of accidents such as this. In one of the most spectacular accidents that I've ever seen in Indy, Tom Sneaver remarkably escaped with relatively light injuries from this crash. Then, in the first corner of the first lap of the Monaco Grand Prix, Derek Daly in his Tyrrell was fortunately strapped firmly into his car and walked away with no ill effects after leapfrogging a good part of the field. Stock car racing has produced some extraordinary escapes. Maynard Troy amazingly survived this one to tell the tale again. He was wearing his seatbelts. What you are seeing here is perhaps the best example of how serious injury can be avoided, even though, as you will recognise, Gary Gray is being bounced about in the cockpit of his car in a severe manner. He was wearing a full harness belt system, but as the slow motion action shows, his body seems at times to be almost elastic. In the end, his crash helmet even came off. It's not only in accidents like you've just seen that you wear seatbelts. You need them on the road also, because almost every year 21,000 Americans die in the front seat of their cars. If you were to have compulsory wearing of seatbelts such as they have in 25 other countries around the world, you would save, just in front seat passengers alone, 7,000 lives a year. You only wear seatbelts in about 10% of your motoring public in America, against, in Australia, some 97%. Now, when accidents do occur, such as this, where a dummy is unrestrained in a crash test, look what happens. On the other hand, where the dummy is wearing the seatbelt, you can see it never reaches the windshield or the dashboard, and therefore gets saved from serious injury and perhaps death. So what is the message? If race drivers wear their seatbelts and they're exposed to many accidents, and a lot of the rest of the world wear seatbelts, why don't you?
You hear every year about the fatalities on the Memorial Day weekend. There'll be again this year. Make sure you're wearing your seatbelt. Let's go to Larry Nuber with Dr. Henry Bach.
Dr. Bach, can you repeat the conditions of Danny Sullivan and Pat Bedard, please?
Danny Sullivan is in good condition. Pat Bedard, we would list as serious right now till we're finished with our evaluation.
Any details on Patrick's injuries?
Not right now.
Green flag is out, racing again in Indianapolis, and we have a new leader in the race. The man who sat on the pole of last year's race, the Italian Teo Favi in car number 33, followed by Danny Angaias in number 25. However, it's my feeling, Sam, that those two cars did not pit under the yellow and that they might have pit stop coming up quite soon under the green to cost them both the lead, because otherwise I can't imagine that they would have moved ahead of Al Unser Jr. in number 7, who's third, Rick Mears, and Tom Sneva.
Yes, I agree with you, Jim. Nonetheless, they are matching the pace of the ostensibly faster cars at this point, which is to say that maybe psychologically, once you're out there and out front, maybe you just push it down a little bit harder, do you think?
And should there be another yellow very soon, they can come in and pit and hold on to the lead.
Well, that's the point. They know if they can stay ahead, as you point out, of the leader, that could save them. So there is some special incentive to run really hard.
Danny Angaias setting up on Favi. Angaias, who had that terrible crash a couple of years ago, back in action and driving as well or better than ever. We mentioned that he's taken off 40 pounds. He's much more physically fit, ready to stay the course than he used to be.
And he's leading the Indianapolis 500. Not bad.
Nothing wrong with that.
Favi, who was magic here last year, as I said earlier, has not had the handle on the speed at all this year so far. It's been a very discouraging month for him. He's very occupied now with his Formula One racing program.
Angaias beginning to pull it out a little bit in his black number 25.
Yep. Tremendous comeback front, guys. You know, you think, after we've just seen Pat Bedard's accident, you think of Danny Angaias' accident, and that didn't seem survivable either, did it, Jim? And yet, I mean, maybe there's something about racing that pushes our horizons further and further. They show us that things are possible that we didn't hitherto realize were
possible. What they've done with these race cars, as you said, in the realm of safety, is just unbelievable. There they go. Look at that. Yeah, tremendous speed.
Look at that speed. You know, in the turns, they are going 195 miles an hour. In the turns themselves, and about 210 on the straight.
There's the helicopter. We're told Pat Bedard is in that helicopter. Will be airlifted to Memorial Hospital here in Indianapolis, just 2 or 3 minutes by helicopter, and they'll get instant attention. But now, look here what we have. Favi retaking the lead from Danny Angaias.
And look who's ghosting along right behind them there, young Al Unser.
That's right, Al Unser Jr. at age 22. Then we have Sneva behind them, and Rick Mears, the white and yellow car that flashed through your picture. Gordon Johncock into the pits again.
Trying to figure out whether that would be routine. There's Unser making the pass of Angaias for second. That's coming into turn 1 there. That pass taking place right at 210, 215 miles an hour.
And again, that's Unser Jr., the younger, not the 3-time champion of Indy. I think we're going to get another report now on the condition from Dr. Bach. Here we go, Larry.
Can you give us an update on Patrick's condition?
Yes, we just loaded him into the helicopter, I'm sure, as you're aware. We're still listing him as serious, but he is waking up. He appears to be reacting appropriately, and there's no major problems at this time. We'll still list him serious till they complete their evaluation down at the Methodist Trauma Center.
Any specific injuries you can list at this time?
Nothing that we can tell you right now.
Isn't that an unbelievable report? I mean, it's an entirely optimistic report as far as it can be at this time from Dr. Bach. After what you saw Pat Bedard go through, and he is regaining consciousness at this point, talking to people, it's just, well, stay with the story.
Just as you couldn't possibly believe that cars could lap here at over 200 miles an hour routinely. There goes Teo Favi down in. And look at Sneva. Sneva coming on with little Al Unser. Sneva blowing right by to take the lead.
White car of Tom Sneva, the defending champion of Indianapolis. Now here is Teo Favi in the pits. Will start very neatly. Changing rubber on the right side.
Decision of the crew, but this is the crew that failed last year on Favi's second pit stop, do you recall? Not the crew, but they had a problem with the O-ring and their refueling. This gives you an idea. Even when something looks routine, something violent can go wrong in a moment.
That was certainly a very professional pit stop there.
It was. Again, I point out the roughness of that pit lane. Jim, if there's anything that worries us, I think year in and year out, look at that.
Young Al pulling out, and now neck and neck with Tom Sneva.
Young Al Unser moving back ahead of the veteran Tom Sneva, the defending champion here. Wow. Terrific racing. So far, good news on Pat Bedard. Danny Sullivan, of course, also was involved in the crash, but he's back in the garage area now. In fact, we're going to have a word with him.
Danny, you got involved in the Bedard incident. What happened?
Well, actually, I got involved in an incident after Pat's accident. He had his moment and big accident there, I guess, in 3 and 4. We slowed down coming down the back chute. The yellow was already on. Everybody was getting in line. And then as we went by the accident on the left-hand side, we were up against the wall. Somebody in front decided to stop and have a look at the accident and slow right down. Fabi locked up his brakes trying to miss it. Went up and closed up the gap toward the wall. Guerrero closed it up even closer, and I had nowhere to go and drove over the back of Guerrero's wheel.
Danny, do you know who it was who stopped suddenly in front of all of you?
No, I wish I did, but it wouldn't do any good. You know, I just can't believe that somebody'd stop on a racetrack to look at an accident.
You went over Roberto's wheels, though, right?
Right, I went over his left rear with my right front, and that was it.
Was the debris on the racetrack a factor at all in your incident?
No, they had us pushed up a little bit tight on the wall, but there was still no problem. The only thing was that I couldn't go to the left because one of the marshals was standing there, and I certainly couldn't hit him. So it was just a matter of trying to get it stopped, and I couldn't.
Well, frustrated Danny Sullivan, but he is at least totally well. There's Al Unser Jr., the leader in the Indianapolis 500 at the age of 22. The youth movement has certainly arrived this year at Indy. We've been saying for so many years there's got to be changing of the guard. Well, it's underway right now. Gradual, but it's underway. Up, and there is Al coming into the pits. Leader into the pits, making Tom Sneva in white car number 1 the leader again.
I started to mention earlier the roughness of that pit lane. You see him bumping in there. It's the only part of the track that hasn't been resurfaced in recent years.
You may wonder why they don't have half a dozen or a dozen people over the wall there. Well, the rule is only 5 people over the wall in any pit.
Obviously, as you can see, they are not changing tires here, only refueling it, so it's a relatively rapid stop, and he's away.
A neat stop for Al Unser Jr., but at this moment, Tom Sneva is again the leader. See how long that lasts. Well, for the first time today, a driver has taken something of a comfortable lead in the Indianapolis 500. Tom Sneva, the defending champion. No one has repeated as champion in this race since Al Unser, Sr., in 1970 and 71, and he happens to be running second in the race at the moment.
You know, Sneva is so interesting to me, Jim, because in this day and age when the car counts for so much, many of the drivers have a kind of ambivalence for their car, because when it's so good, then it diminishes your role. You see what I mean? Well, one solution is to be identified with your car and its success. In other words, to know how to set the car up, or to be a quasi-designer. Sneva has taken this route. In fact, even to the slightly disconcerting habit of referring always to himself as we. You know, whenever he describes a racing situation, I guess he means me, my car, and the team. But that is very real with him. He really does not see. Here's Al Unser Sr. coming into the pits, into the Penske pits.
Contrasting Sneva, A.J. Foyt, for example, almost treats his car like a steed, like his horse, right? Berating it if it's going badly and fixing it, praising it if it does well.
And you see what different generations they are. There's that bumpy pit lane with Sneva coming in very, very fast. You see how easy it would be to get a car out of control if you didn't have his skill.
Al Unser Sr. now being pushed back out. Sneva's still in the pits. That's the second place car. This is the first place car.
Fresh tires there for Al Unser Sr. There he is, very calm.
He said very much of a thinking man, too, particularly on the aspect of speed here. In fact, Sam talked to him earlier about that.
Well, I think it just gives you a little more time to react in certain situations. We do a lot of things by anticipation and trying to look ahead and evaluate the people you're around when a situation arises and putting that all through the mental computer in a short amount of time to decide how you're going to react in a certain situation. So it just gives you a little more time to react, and if something does happen, the resulting impact, if there's going to be one, is going to be a little slower. So you're going to have an advantage that way. Now, you know, idealistic, a lot of people say, well, what's going to be the difference between 210 and 185? Well, there might not be a great amount of difference, but if I get my choice, I'm going to opt for 185. It helps to be a little crazy to be a race driver, but you don't have to be completely stupid. I wish I could run 131 miles an hour instead of 231. I don't think they're going to let us do that, so you got to pick out a number that's going to be somewhat realistic to the people. Again, we don't have to run that fast to put on a good show. The show consists of good, close racing is what makes it entertaining. Here at Indianapolis, people like to see speed when it comes to qualifying. The rest of our series isn't based on that. For our series, IndyCar racing, to be successful, we've got to be entertaining, and what's entertaining is close competitive racing, and that's the direction we have to go. This place, Indianapolis, is going to make it, no matter how fast we run or what the rules and regulations are, it's established it's going to be the granddaddy of them all. So we've got to be more concerned about what's going to make IndyCar racing as a whole, the sport, grow, and that's close racing.
The fastest driver in the history of Indianapolis and the leader in the race and the defending champion putting in his pitch for slower speeds. He thinks it's getting too dangerous.
Yeah, and here he goes putting a lap on Al Unser Sr. And Jim, I'm not sure I agree with him because history and statistics show that racing is safer today than it ever has been despite the increase in speed.
Well, we talk about speed. It's so hard to show it here. It really is. We put the cameras where we get the speed shots. You get something of the feeling. But maybe we can illustrate it for you. Comparing it to something, that's very familiar. Let's try to do that. 100 yards is a very understandable distance to the average American. We all know that a track star can run that distance in less than 10 seconds. And here, we're seeing Tony Dorsett of the Dallas Cowboys on what turns out to be a 100-yard run in about 13 seconds. That's about as fast as man can run through traffic with a full load of football pads. Tony Dorsett in action. Now, I've mentioned many times that an Indy car on the straightaway goes a football field in 1 second, but maybe you don't believe me. So, we measured off 100 yards on the straightaway at Indianapolis very precisely. Then, through the electronic magic of television, we superimpose a football field. Now, watch the cars flash by. And then watch for the clock. On the next car. Let's see how long it takes. He flashes by in, what? Hard to catch, wasn't it? So let's slow it down for you. Into slow motion now, the clock at the bottom. Here comes the car. Remember, he's going 120 yards. That's the field plus the end zones in 1.1 seconds, or just under 1 second for 100 yards. So that seems to make that point, I think. There is car number 1, Tom Sneva. We passed the halfway mark. We have an official race right now. Jackie Stewart checking in with his periodic reports at the halfway mark. Let's hear from him again then. Jackie?
So at the halfway mark, what have we had? Well, obviously the enormous accident of Pat Bedard. Dr. Bock told us that his condition was favourable in the sense that the significance of the accident was so enormous. That says a great deal for the way the motor cars are built here. The survival cells that these drivers are strapped into certainly save lives. The ways the cars are constructed today as deformable structures diffuse the energy as the accident goes on. But it's almost a miracle to me that Pat Bedard has lived through that accident. So let's wish him well and let's see how his condition develops. What else has been happening out there? Well, I think the remarkable story is, of course, Al Unser Jr., who's come from 15th position, went on as far as taking the lead at one point. Danny Ongais also made his presence felt after his horrific accident back in 1981. It's nice to see Danny Ongais because he got into the lead also. A peculiar story is the A.J. Foyt Jim Gilmer team, because they've got 3 cars entered in this race this year with a total over the drivers and Jim Gilmer and A.J. Foyt of 66 entries in this Indianapolis 500, and after all it's only been going on for 68 races, so that's impressive. However, none of his drivers, Rutherford, Foyt or George Snyder, are in the top 10 as I speak to you now. The road racers are doing very well. Rick Mears, of course, was an off-road racer, but it looks like the new generation of Indy driver is being competitive. Now, let's have a look at the standings at the halfway mark. Tom Sneva is in the lead, Al Unser Jr. up into second position, Rick Mears, Mario Andretti, Michael Andretti, the son follows in the father's footsteps, with in 6th place Bobby Rahal, Guerrero's in 7th, Al Hobart, another rookie, in 8th, Alan Senior is in 9th and Theo Fabi 10th. That means the two father and son combinations are in the top 10. Cars out of the race so far after 100 laps. Brabham, Fittipaldi and Gelhausen, they're all out. After them, of course, Bedard with that horrific accident. Danny Sullivan with the aftermath of that accident, broke a wheel and damaged the bodywork. Canassi went out with electrical problems. Derek Daly, who's had a very difficult month of May with handling problems in his car, he's dropped out of the race. And Tony Bettenhausen blew a piston, so he's retired. Now, the leader's average speed has dropped to 160.772 miles an hour because of the Bedard accident. Took up a lot of time, and we've had 2 yellow flags. So we'll be back for more racing at Indianapolis after this.
The starting field for the Indianapolis 500 is limited to the 33 fastest cars selected in 4-lap trials. This number is determined by an old standard of the American Automobile Association of 1 car for every 400 feet of track.
There's Theo Fabi of Italy coming into the pits at Indianapolis, the man who sat on the pole last year, who has already announced that he's not coming back to Indianapolis, or he says anytime in the future he's going to drive a couple of years of Formula One. That's his intention, and then hang it up. He doesn't want to stay in the sport too long. Fabi into the pits. There is the leader, Tom Sneva, in car number 1.
By the way, Fabi going in so slowly, Jim, is to suggest some kind of a problem there. Have a look at that groove, the dark groove. That, of course, is the safe racing line. Where you go? There's the story, I guess.
Okay, Fabi out of the car. Looks like that is probably it for the day. We have seen cars get back in the race after the driver got out, but not too often.
Oh, and sure, he's out of it now, though, as far as having any shot to win. I was going to say, there's that dark groove, that gray area above it is treacherous. That's where the dust accumulates, you know, that's blown off the tires and the cars and so on. It's almost like an ice skating rink up there, so you won't see people. There's Sharon Sneva, of course, Tom Sneva's wife.
Looking pretty well under control about things. Well, he's got things pretty well.
He's chewing the gum, though.
Yeah.
I would be, too.
There's our man out there, Tom Sneva.
For example, right there would be a reason to be nervous. Passing Chris Kniper, who stays cleanly out of the way, though. But still, when you pass any car at 190 miles an hour, whoa!
Oops, Tim. Gordon Johncock coming into the pits. Look out.
Look at that. Gordon Johncock.
Watch out for the... Oh. Wow, how he missed everybody, I don't know.
Look at the guy behind him that he almost hit.
Yeah.
Gordy throwing his steering wheel out. I think he's okay. He's not seriously hurt. Yeah,
he's pointing to the front of the car. He may have his feet caught in there, you know.
All right, there he is, the right of your screen. It's amazing. I was talking about that groove. He was wide of the groove, Jim. He was right behind Sneva. Gordy, in the few laps before this, had been doing speeds at about 204 miles an hour. He was...
Look what could have happened. Look at the end of that pit wall. If you hit that, you're finished.
Incredible.
And if his speed had been greater, he could have flipped over that wall.
This was fraught from moment to moment. Now he could have hurt somebody other than himself.
This is the closest we've seen to the kind of a pit crash that we've dreaded for years in Indianapolis. Had the speed been more tremendous, it would have been awful.
Remember, he hurt himself very badly. He hurt his ankle last summer in Michigan, and I just hope he hasn't re-injured it in some way.
He did look like he was in pain, no question. Jackie Stewart, would you like to have a look at this?
Well, Jim, I see Gordon Johncock doing something here that only spells an enormous amount of enthusiasm. It's one of our super slow motion camera shots here. He steered into the wall after he hit it with his rear right. He steered into the wall to try and stay on the wall all the way down the racetrack. I've hit the wall just at that very same place as Gordy did, and I know the feeling. It's an enormous jar, but he did something that a younger driver simply wouldn't have done. He really steered into the wall to try and rub off as much speed and stay on the racetrack rather than come across and be hit by other cars coming on. But what could have happened here with all these gas tanks there, I fear to think if it happened in different ways. If he had climbed over that pit wall, it would have been absolutely awful. And I did see there, in fact, a parked car, which I suspect might have been Theo Fabi's car. That could also have been adding the trouble. But my goodness, he handled it well, but it could have been much more serious than it's turned out.
And had he not scrubbed off that speed, those things could have happened. And there's Gordy on the stretcher right now. Ray Gandolf is with us today. You saw him at the top of the program. He's been wandering about, has found something for us. In fact, we're going to look at it right now. Ray Gandolf. Okay, Ray Gandolf, the yellow flag still out, so we had time to bring you that Ray Gandolf report. We'll be hearing from a little bit later on. Jack Arute is down in the pits right now. He has a report on Teo Fabi.
All is not going well down here in the Teo Fabi pit. Of course, the car was pushed back here, and Teo walked back to the pits and walked right straight through the pit area to the garage area, to Gasoline Alley. Jerry Forsythe and Jerry Green grabbed him and said, let's get back in the car. Teo said, it's no use, we're 5 laps down. Heated words ensued, and Teo got back in the machine.
Little dissension among the gang down there in the Teo Fabi pits. Oh, there's John Cox's car being taken away. There'll be a little delay. Let's take a break. Green flag out again. Stephen number 1 now trailing Rick Mears in the yellow car. Rick Mears has regained the lead. Stephen and Al Unser Jr., Roberto Guerrero, the rookie from Colombia, and Al Unser Sr. The one father-son combination still going strong. The Andretti's have dropped back a bit.
There's Al Unser Jr. taking a very low line through there. He's been very confident all day. There's the leader, yellow car, number 6, Rick Mears.
He is on the Penske team. In second place, Stephen from the Teddy Mayer team. Third place, Al Unser Jr.
Packed
in the black
house.
car.
A packed house. Isn't it something to see them flashing by 400,000 people every 45 seconds, which is how long it takes to get around.
I don't know. We can only guess. They don't give out an official attendance, but it certainly should be well over 400,000. Could be the largest crowd they've ever had. Bill Fleming is at his station in the pits. Wonder what's been happening to Mario Andretti. He's with his crew chief.
I'm with Darryl Soppy, the crew chief of Mario Andretti. And Darryl, one of our questions is, why has Mario dropped so far back?
Well, we're having a little bit of an engine problem. The thing's dropped down about 400 revolutions a minute, so that says it started going away, started slowing down. Up until when we were leading the race, the engine was fine, and then all of a sudden he just started going back, and he told me the engine was starting to run poorly. So there's a problem with the engine. We're just trying to hang in there.
The 400 RPMs at 11,000 doesn't sound like very much.
Well, that's enough to drop you back where we are. It definitely hurt on the straightaway speed.
Do you think you can do anything in a moment's notice when he comes in?
Not really. We don't really know why it's dropped the RPM, so we'll just have to hang in there.
Hang in there could be the slogan of Indianapolis. Another report from the doctor. Let's go.
Dr. Bach, Gordy Johncock. Yes, Gordon's being sent down to Methodist for X-ray evaluation of his left ankle. No other apparent injuries at this time. He's awake and alert and not complaining of anything except pain in his ankle. And this is not an aggravation of the injury of a year ago, is it? No, I believe that was his right ankle. How about Pat Bedard? Do you have an update on his condition? Yes, I do. I just spoke to Methodist. He appears to be in stable condition. We're awaiting the results of his CAT scan. Possibility of a broken jaw, is that an accurate report? They're still evaluating that, but there's no word yet.
Okay, things still sounding guardedly optimistic for Pat Bedard. The CAT scan, of course, being a brain scan, very important when you have an impact like that. Rick Mears still leading at Indy. Al Unser Jr. has moved into second now, ahead of Tom Sneva, then Guerrero, and Al Unser Sr. Still a ways to go. We return to Indianapolis. Jim McKay here with Sam Posey in the booth, and there is Mears going way down low, trying to put a lap on Guerrero, the fourth place car, and doing it. What a move.
Well, right down on the grass. Of course, it was in the middle of the straightaway, so there isn't great danger. Let's have another look at it if we can. All right, here it is. Of course, he initiates the move coming off that turn. That's turn 2.
Yeah, we're talking about the yellow car now behind the whitish car.
Right. The orange car just ahead of Scott Brayton. He's being lapped. Now, of course, here's the drafting maneuver by Mears. This is when he's allowing Guerrero to blast the air out of the way for him, so he, in effect, can slingshot by. Of course, Guerrero is going out around Brayton at the same time, so Mears has to come right out next to the grass. Of course, if he'd gone onto the grass, Jim, that would have been it. He would have spun like a whirling dervish down that straightaway, but he didn't.
Just a matter of no more than a foot.
Yeah.
Probably just inches.
Neat
staying away from the grass.
Neat. I really like that.
Admire it.
Oh, I think it's terrific. Rick Mears.
With good reason. We're at lap 127, by the way, returning to the action now. Lap 127, and, well, I should think that the physical demands might be coming into play pretty soon. We'll be talking about that. But there is Rick Mears, the leader. a young man who is in very good physical condition, keeps himself in shape, as just about all of the drivers do today.
Of course, but conditioning or not, think of the G-forces, 2.5 to 3 lateral G-forces in those two.
Rick Mears of Bakersfield, California. Is he in physical shape? Well, you, Sam, talked to him a little bit earlier about the physical demands of the sport.
It's never much of a problem at this track because you don't have the banking. You get to Atlanta, Michigan, those kind of places with high banks, there's where you really feel it, and that's where it can get to you. But here you kind of get into you feel it at first. Your arms get heavy. Your legs, your left leg is being mashed over against your right leg. And, you feel those things at the start of the race, and say for the first 20 or 30 laps. And then pretty soon you get acclimated to it, and you're almost immune to it. And you're just thinking about what you're doing and what the car is doing, and all that just becomes irrelevant, so to speak. You just no longer think about it.
Rick Mears, the leader. 200 miles an hour they showed him on the last lap. Imagine that.
Incredible. Jim, there's a correlation possibly between that speed and what we were just talking about with Rick Mears and the fitness issue, which is that it's cooler now. It's shady here. It's cloudy. And cooler weather makes for higher speeds on the track because the engines produce more horsepower and it's easier on the driver. So maybe it isn't so bad today, which means we may get better racing. This race is moving along toward its conclusion now.
There has been a forecast of rain sometime this afternoon. As you said, it's overcast and cooler right now. It could come in, but at the moment it looks okay.
Ooh, notice how close. But that is the Rick Mears trademark. He seems to be very comfortable slicing very close to things. There are several other drivers through history that have been like that. Jim Clark was that way, the great Ronnie Peterson. So it has precedence in the sport.
Well, into the pits comes the car that's been in second place, Al Unser Jr. Al Unser Jr. into the pits, his silver bullet, as he called it. Let's see. Well, this looks a little more than routine, you think?
No, standard refueling. They're not changing the tires.
Just talking to him.
Oh, wait a minute.
No. They seem to be walking rather than running.
It was a standard stop. He'd be somewhere in turn 1 by now, Jim. I think I called that one wrong.
Well, I saw them walking instead of doing their usual balletic number of, dancing almost around the car.
Well, whatever it was sudden and total. This is not good.
Well, there comes his wheel out of the car.
Yeah.
He's going to get out of the car. Gee, he's been running so well all day in the second Indy 500.
Well,
young Al Unser.
He certainly covered himself with glory again today. He was so good here last year, in my view, even though he didn't have a high finish, because the car didn't run that well during the day. Now, of course, he had many, many laps in the lead. Young Al Unser, who will win this race. You just know it someday very soon.
That's a forecast from you, eh?
Well, I don't know. I think so. What do you think?
Haven't seen your man Al Holbert so far, whom you predicted would be in fourth.
He's doing all right. Al Holbert's running.
Well, he's in the top 10.
Yeah. He's doing great.
Rick Mears, however, is the leader. He's very comfortable at this moment. Bill Fleming's down. I think he's going to have a word, Bill is, with Al Unser Jr.
I'm with Al Unser Jr., who obviously is heartbroken at this point because, Al, you were running second when you had to drop out. What happened?
Well, the engine started seasoning something in a crank bearing, I believe, or something of that kind.
A bearing?
Yeah, something in the motor. It just, my water temp went real sky high, and it just lost a couple cylinders.
We had an unofficial observation there was a hole in your radiator.
I didn't know about that. Never knew about that.
Well, that certainly could account for the high temp, and then, of course, with the engine getting overheated and burning a bearing.
Yeah, it could happen. I just know the motor went dead on me, and we had to bring it in.
I'll tell you one thing, it does prove to you just how tough it is, and to win out here, and the fact that your dad won 3 times is really remarkable.
Yes, it is. He's a great champion, and the car was running good. It was handling great. They could outrun me down the straightaways, but I could outrun them in the corners, and it seemed like my average speed was quicker than what they could do, so we were just trying to lead it.
That young man has an awful lot of racing knowledge in his head at age 22. There we have the leader, Rick Mears, and now we only have 2 cars on the same lap. Just Rick Mears and Tom Sneva. There you see Sneva in car number 1, defending champion. He's not out of it yet. This could be quite a finish. Still the same situation. Rick Mears in the lead. Tom Sneva in second place. There you see the relationship on the racetrack between the 2 cars. So it's a good long way back to Sneva, but he does seem to be infinitesimally eating into the lead of Mears at this moment. Al Unser Sr. in the pits.
This is the much fabled Penske pit crew in action, and actually not making that great an exit from the pit. So you're reminded a little bit about bobsledding, Jim, from the Winter Olympics, pushing out of the vehicle.
Or even your sport of luge, Winter Olympics.
Well,
there are the standings. Mears and Sneva on the same lap. 1 lap down, Roberto Guerrero. What a debut at Indianapolis for him so far.
These road racers that are coming into this sport, I say this, with some pride, having been a road racer myself, have the kind of all-around skills that it takes to adapt to this kind of racing. I might also say, all right,
here he comes into the pits.
Yep.
Leader into the pits, normal up to this point. Seems to be coming into the normal speed.
Now this, would not be the same crew that just refueled Al Unser Sr., The Penske pit has entirely separate crews. Right. This is a different group going into action here.
And at this moment, Tom Sneva becomes the leader in the race.
But of course he hasn't pitted, so he will have to pit. So there's a good battle starting to shape up between Sneva and Rick Mears, who you see here. Good hit stop for Rick Mears.
Has the making possibility of what they call a trophy dash to the finish, huh? Remember when we had Mears a couple of years ago with Gordon Johncock, and he lost the race by 16 100ths of a second?
That was the closest finish.
Here comes Sneva for his pit stop now.
Of course, the finish you mentioned was the closest ever in the history of Indianapolis. Here's Sneva in. Again, it looks routine. This is the team that's headed by Teddy Mayer, Tyler Alexander, the men that won this race when they ran Team McLaren. Then they went back to Europe and got it done in Formula One. They got squeezed out over there for one reason or another, came back here, formed an entirely new team, got Tom Sneva to head it up, and here they are, looking tough.
Doing extremely well. Sneva headed back out on the race course. Years ago, it used to take them so long to get back up to speed, but it doesn't anymore. They're up almost immediately. We just saw beautiful pit work there, and of course that's the athletic moments of the pit crew. What about the mechanics who work on the cars ahead of time? That's a very delicate job too. Sam has a comparison.
Sylvia Mayuri has played the piano since she was 6. Her hands, trained by thousands of hours of practice, almost have a life of their own. She thinks and they act. There are other professions in which a person's hands, whether through their strength or delicacy or dexterity, perform tasks far beyond the capabilities of the ordinary person. One thinks of surgeons or carpenters or sculptors like Bill Grimes. Dennis McCormick is an Indy mechanic. Like all top mechanics, his hands are powerful. They are also remarkably deft, capable of performing a wide variety of jobs, including some in which he must work in places he cannot see, jobs that involve threading his fingers into the narrow innards of the car. Just as the pianist must play under pressure at a concert, the mechanic must be able to work fast with unfailing certitude, often when parts of the car are red hot, changing an engine, for example, in the minutes before a race, or adjusting the suspension during the rush of a pit stop. Just as a sculptor may strive to create forms of enduring beauty, an Indy mechanic works with parts and pieces which are beautiful because they are superbly functional. Parts made from high-grade steel, magnesium, carbon fiber, welded and machined and shaped without regard to cost. This is what Dennis McCormick works with every day, his hands developing a kind of X-ray sensibility to any flaw anywhere in the car. Williams knows when something is wrong too, when a form has not attained the strength or grace he intended, and he will work until he makes it right. Sylvia Mayuri knows when she has hit the wrong note or played with less feeling than the music deserves, and she will practice and get it right. But if Dennis McCormick makes a mistake, he may not find out about it until his driver is out on the track. Like any racing mechanic, he does his best and hopes that it was enough.
And I might add that my race driving colleague Sam Posey is also an artist, a painter of landscapes and other things. There's a nice piece. Rick Mears still leading at Indianapolis. Tom Steva in second place. He leads by about 10 seconds in the race right now. What we'll be watching is whether Steva begins to chew into that lead of 10 seconds. Jack Arute right now is down with the team's leader, Roger Penske.
Here in the pits with Roger Penske, and Roger, you're 11 seconds ahead at this time with Rick Mears. Are things going according to plan?
Well, hopefully we can make it on one more stop. Everything, we put a set of tires on that time, so we don't have to put one on the last stop. We just feel it. We don't have to make a mistake, maybe a slight wing adjustment, but still a long race to go, just keeping our fingers crossed.
Well, you've been doing a lot of calculating, though, for the fuel consumption. Does it look good right now?
Yeah, our fuel mileage has been better than we expected, so we made a long run there so we could try to just make one more stop, and hopefully it'll pay off.
Seems to be the only major problem down here is a lost rear view mirror that came off the left side of Rick Mears' car.
Well, his hair has turned to silver, but the wheels are still turning inside Roger Penske's head as cleverly and as quickly as ever. Here again, his man leading the race, Rick Mears, trying to win the Indianapolis 500 for the second time. There are the standings at this moment. Two rookies in the top five.
During the war years of 1917-1918, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway was used as an aviation repair depot and landing field for military planes.
And still Rick Mears leads. They're at about the 149 lap mark of this scheduled 200 lap race, 500 miles here on this 2.5 mile race course. So there's still a bit of a ways to go. Quarter of the race still to go. Bill Fleming right now is down with Tyler Alexander, the crew chief for Tom Sneva. Let's get into that.
Tyler, we just heard a report from Roger Penske over in Rick Mears' pit that they're 11 seconds ahead of you, but you seem to be gaining a little bit. How many pit stops do you have to go?
Well, we have one pit stop, and at the moment my watch just said that we're 8.5 seconds behind Mears, and the car is not handling very well. So Tom is talking to me on the radio about some things that we maybe should change on the next pit stop. So we have quite a conversation going, so I'm sorry that I haven't got time to chat to you some more.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, a very busy Tyler Alexander. The most significant thing is it's 8.5 seconds now. It was 11 seconds not too long ago. So despite the handling problems, Tom Sneva here is moving in just a bit by bit, but he's got plenty of time to catch up if he can continue doing that.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of race left here, and I must admit, I'm moving forward on the edge of my seat. You have that feeling?
I do have that feeling,
I think we might be headed for a showdown.
Again, the relationship between the two cars on the race course, shorter than it was before.
There's the possibility of some rain. Look!
Oh, a spin, that is Roberto Guerrero, the rookie who's been running so well, but he's under control.
He didn't hit it, and he didn't stall it, Jim.
That's a beautiful job.
He didn't stall it. These cars always stall when they spin. To avoid stalling, you have to whip your foot in on the clutch. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And he did that. That's incredible presence of mind, and I must say, you know, in Formula One, when the turns are slower, they're more apt. Here, of course, Sneva coming in now that there's a yellow out. In Formula One, they're, shall we say, a little more used to spins, where they can afford them, and Guerrero, incredible presence of mind. I mean, all right, he lost control, but what he did after that was absolutely brilliant. I mean, you know, I think so many other people would have wound up in the wall there without any idea why.
Comparatively young in the sport, the young man from Columbia. But here is Sneva in the pits. Remember, that was his crew chief, Bill Fleming was talking to just a minute ago. Now Tom back out again, another efficient pit stop by the Teddy Mayer crew.
Well, the things Tyler Meyer spoke of trying to change. They did, of course, make the tires here.
Here comes the leader.
Mears. Changing the rear tires, Jim, as you well know, means changing the handling of the car because the tires these days are not quite the same diameter. No two are quite the same. So you change the tires and you get a little bit different handling combination.
Okay, and there goes Mears back out again. It's time now to check in with Jackie Stewart periodically. We're now at the three-quarter mark of the race. Oh, look at that. And here he is.
Before this yellow came out right now, we had quite a spectacular set of circumstances. We had 3 rookies in the top 6. A.J. Foyt had entered the top 10. The Penske Panthers were roaming again with Rick Mears very much in control, it looked at this stage. Mears very controlled. He's been the quiet man of the month here at Indianapolis. Everyone's been paying more attention to Andretti, to the young charger, so to speak, and Mears has been sneaking up on them all and finds himself in a very good position. Tom Snever still can't be counted out. Remarkable that the Tyler Alexander, Teddy Mayer team should have the 2 cars that they've entered, fastest and second fastest at the start, and certainly Tom Snever's not out of this motor race yet. They're still in contention. Now let's look at the order. Rick Mears is leading the race. Tom Snever in second spot. Alan Senior is in third position. And Al Halbert, who incidentally Sam Posey forecast to finish 4th in this race, he's up to 4th position. That's good. Michael Andretti's in 5th position. Danny and Gaius Guerrero, Rahal, and A.J. Foyt is in 9th position. 10th position, Howdy Holmes. And now cars out of the race. Brabham, Fittipaldi, Gelhausen, they've all gone out. Of course, Patrick Bedard's that horrific accident. And Danny Sullivan, the aftermath of that accident, he broke a wheel and damaged the car. Ganassi had electrical problems. He's out. Derek Daly has a difficult month of May with handling, and that's been the problem today for him. Bettenhausen. Gordon Johncock, of course, crashed in 103. He's retired from the race. Fabi, and the oldest man in the race, Dick Simon, he's retired from the race. Johnny Rutherford, winning this race 3 times in the past. He's had a very difficult month of May, even qualifying, so he's retired. Al Unser Jr. retired. Kevin Cogan in the only All-American car of Dan Gurney's with a stock block engine. He's retired. Pancho Carter, he's out also. Scott Brayton, with transmission, went out in 1 lap of 150. Then the leader's average speed is 162.965 miles per hour. We've had 4 yellow flags, and we're still under the yellow here, and we'll be back after this commercial.
Continue it does, and here is Mario Andretti, number 3, into the pits. Look at the front wing. He's had an incident on the course, getting out of the car. It looks like the bad luck that has dogged him for the past 15 years here, since he won the race in 1969, has got him again.
Jim, I saw Mario sitting out by the swimming pool the other day. He had his swimming trunks on. He had his cooler sitting by him with his wife. Here comes that incident. Now a replay as he's coming into the pits.
Jose Garza in front of him, is it?
Yes, Garza in the white car.
Yeah,
you see,
coming in, and there.
Yeah, there he is.
Couldn't avoid him.
No, he couldn't. That's a shame. I was going to say he was sitting by the pool, and he was all ready to go, except there was no water in the pool.
Has that kind of luck at Indianapolis. Bill Fleming is down with a saddened Mario Andretti.
Doggone it, Paulie. Here you are again, and we have to do an interview under unhappy circumstances, but what happened?
Garza just was all of a sudden just decided to duck in the pits, and apparently, I don't know if he knew where he was going or what, because it looked like he was in the last pit. He was going to stop.
Garza?
Yeah, it looked like he was going to get out of the way, then all of a sudden he pulled in the fast lane. I couldn't stop, I just hit him.
Mario, you were running about 400 revs slower than anybody else, and I think Darrell was concerned about that. He talked to us about it earlier. Any idea what that problem was?
I had a broken exhaust pipe.
And that would cause just a decrease in RPM, huh?
Losing all the
Hey, listen, let me just ask you one question about this start. How did you feel looking over there at Michael?
Well, he was looking good. He's still looking good. So, hope he brings home the bacon.
Okay, Mario.
Okay, Mario Andretti out of it again. And Indy there is the co-owner of his team, Paul Newman. Yes, the Paul Newman. Might be interesting to meet him a bit. Not Paul Newman, the actor. Paul Newman, the racing man.
It is well known these days that Paul Newman loves racing, and those of us who have seen him drive know he's good at it. He has a sort of talent and determination to have been an Indy driver if he'd begun his career when he was younger. As it is, he's one of the country's top sports car drivers. I asked him what his goals were for his racing.
Well, to avoid being placed in the race car from a wheelchair. We had the Datsun that we're racing. I'm racing with a fellow named Jimmy Fitzgerald, who is older than I am, and so we thought it would be a lot of fun to go to Geritol and see if we could get some sponsorship. You know, the oldest living racers. And I called the fellow who was supposed to make these arrangements, and he said, "You're not going to believe this." I said, "What is it?" He said, "They've decided that they're going for a younger market, and you're too old. So you know that when you're too old for Geritol, you're really old."
This would not be a race which Paul would win, but although he claims he races only to win, it is obvious that driving, whatever the result, seems to have contributed to his extraordinary youthful energy. I asked if it might have helped his acting too.
Well, I think if you can find a new passion, I think it's likely to bleed over into the old ones, into the ones that are simply dying embers, and I think racing has done that. For me, at least that's what Joanne thinks, and she's probably a lot more accurate about what I do than I am. But it certainly has been welcome. It's been slow and painful, but it's been welcome.
Last year, with a movie in the works, with his racing, with his salad dressing company booming, Paul's schedule was so hectic that by the end of the season he was physically and mentally exhausted. When the last race of the year ended with a crash, I asked Joanne Woodward if she thought he'd quit, and she said he should. Well, times change.
Today, there's no one who supports me more or is more forbearing, who understands. She said, at the end of last year, our daughter was through with juniors in riding, and she was going to get rid of her horses, and I was going to get rid of the cars, and Joanne was so pleased because she said for the last 10 years, every Sunday during the summer, I've either been at a horse show or an automobile race, and she said, I've got other things that I enjoy doing. So Claire did not sell her horses, and I did not get rid of the cars. Joanne had said, I have done my motherly and my wifely duties now for 10 years, and I'm not going to any more races. Well, she was at Atlanta and she was at Long Beach, so so much for that. She's marvelous, and she makes it very comfortable for me to continue.
Paul Newman, the green flag is out again now, however. Rick Mears still leading, car number 6, yellow car, passing the slower car at the moment, Tom Gloy. Still no problems, but still, Sneva is edging up. Just, a quarter of a second a lap, maybe something like that. But getting closer, not further away. So, again, we could still be setting up for the kind of a finish we had here a couple of years ago with Mears and Johncock. Stay with us. The standings, still the same. Rick Mears the leader, Tom Sneva second. But Sneva still gaining bit by bit by bit. Al Holbert has now moved up into third place. The man you said was definitely going to finish fourth. Maybe he's going to fool you.
Oh, I hope so. I think he's a terrific driver. Won Le Mans last year. If we're really headed for a showdown, and it appears we may be, here's what you should know about Sneva and Mears. Sneva is 35, Mears 32. Both are in the very prime of their driving careers, Jim, right now. This is Sneva's 11th start here. Mears is 7th. Each has won once. And, they drive the two best teams in Indy racing right now.
Interesting how experience, when you get near the end in Indianapolis, almost inevitably rises to the top. Ray Gandolf has risen from the infield here at Indy. Let's see it.
The charge began literally before dawn at 5 o'clock this morning. By the time the sun had risen over the still empty stands, the arteries leading to the speedway were clogged. But somehow everybody got in, filling the stands and spilling all over the infield. They're a study in motley. This is definitely not Edith Wharton country. You won't find Truman Capote hanging out on the first turn. The height of elegance here is a guy wearing a shirt with buttons. You can see almost anything here in the infield, except the race. That's not quite true, of course. You can see a tiny corner of the race if you climb a tree, or are early enough to get the front row along the fence, or scrunch down and peek through the bottom of the stands. But who needs to see the race? This is a happening. People come here to eat. They come here to drink. They come here to sleep off what they have eaten and drunk. They come here to look at each other and to be looked at. They wear outlandish clothes, sometimes very few clothes at all. Some of them are too young to be able to remember this day when they grow up, but they'll keep coming back until they can.
That's what you find out there. Ray Gandolf reporting from the infield. Rick Mears the leader, Tom Snead second, Al Holbert a lap down, but in third place in the race right now. Mears just so smooth. Now, is it conceivable he is cooling it the least little bit, and that's why Sneva is gaining on him slowly, or is he just doing it? Oh, here's Scott Creighton.
Yep. That's that V6 Buick engine. This is not the standard engine that almost everyone else has, and Rick Mears has. And I don't know if that's the cause of the failure, but here's the yellow flag.
Brings out the yellow again. There is Scott Creighton. Can't tell what the occasion for that has been. This is an opportunity to check in with Bill Fleming again. He's down in the pits. Bill?
Here's something I think that is extremely interesting. On the same number of pit stops, Rick Mears has spent 4 minutes and 21 seconds off the course. Tom Sneva, 4:49. So there's a difference of 28 seconds there, and yet they're only about 8 seconds apart on the course. This, of course, indicates that Tom Sneva is the faster car right now.
You keep your eye on Mears. If he dashes in, you come right in with him.
That was Tyler Alexander. We were able to listen in on the radio. He was talking to Tom Sneva and said, Tom, if Mears ducks into the pit, you come right in with him. Interesting.
Yeah, they mean to cover Mears' moves the way you would cover another boat in a tacking duel in the America's Cup, something like that. Tyler Alexander, extremely experienced crew chief. And so Sneva, of course, himself trying to work out what should be done.
Let's see if we can pick something up again.
We need about 3 more laps, Tom, on the yellow before we dare stop to try to make it to the end.
That's Alexander.
Yeah.
Yes, I think we can make 30 under the green. May run out of fuel on the last lap, but I think we can make 30.
Well, it's going to be close. If they can make 30 laps on the green, they're now on lap 167. They wouldn't quite do it if the green came out now.
No, they might be able to stretch their mileage if Sneva was able to lay out of the throttle a little bit in draft, but I don't think they could also lead that way.
Boy, this is very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Cerebral stuff right here in Indianapolis. We're still into the yellow. There's Tyler Alexander in the corner and his car with Tom Sneva on the racetrack. Still into the yellow, and each lap under the yellow gives them a better chance of being able to up.
Something was wrong with the car. Some sparks came out the back of the car. Tyler, of course, has no idea about that at this point.
Whether they just ran over something or what.
Yeah, he may very well.
Let's see if we can listen in on them again. There's Tyler. Hold it.
He's coming in. He's got something wrong with the car, he says.
This is the moment he knows.
What's the matter with it? What won't run? Doing great.
Can't hear. They said they're going in.
We're going to go. Something wrong with it. Something is broke in the back of the car.
We're about to go green. There is the green out, and you heard it. Something was broken in the back of Tom Sneva's car.
Sneva now.
Yep, coming in
to stop the pit lane.
That must have been that flash, brief flash of fire was at the back. Sparks.
Just as we thought, it was shaping up for an incredible battle. He comes in with a good head of steam, though, Jim.
Yeah. But he was just in position to get into that trophy dash, that dash to the finish with Rick Mears, and he could have made it on fuel, and he was very close to being able to make it. But it's all over now.
They're just going through the motions. I mean, the engine obviously is all right. Wasn't a fun. Look, the crewman is pointing to the back there, a suspension member or something
indicating,
like that.
Forget about it.
Yeah, forget about it. They didn't need to top it up with fuel, that's for sure. Incredible how quickly this happened.
Go ahead.
Jim, just as this epic duel appeared to be shaping up, it's over.
Yep. Steve, the man who won the race last year, trying to become the first repeat winner since Al Unser in 1970 and 71, has failed in that quest after some beautiful virtuoso race driving here this afternoon.
He drove just beautifully today. Highest possible marks.
This, of course, has given Rick Mears a bigger lead than ever.
Hear the crowd there, Jim. Yep, they know it. It's a knowledgeable crowd here, and they love a good drive like that. Here's Rick. Now, of course, with a commanding lead, the whole complexion has changed, hasn't it?
It certainly has. It certainly has. The question now is just maintaining the car for Rick Mears. Bill Fleming has moved over to Sneva's pit. Here he is.
Well, Tom, it's a dramatic moment in this race, but certainly very undramatic for you. What happened?
Well, I don't know. It looks like something let go in the back of the car, half shaft or something. Fortunately, it happened under the yellow when we were going slow, which is a real break, because if it happens at speed, we get the wall. But it's too bad, because we had the car working. I think we were touching the leader, and it would have been an exciting race.
Actually, you were running faster on the course than he was. I think your only concern with Tyler Alexander, according to the conversation we heard, was fuel. Did you think you could make it with one more stop?
Yeah, we would have had to stop one more time. We weren't concerned about that too much because we knew Mears wasn't getting the mileage we were. I think the car was a little quicker there towards the end, but you got to run 500 miles.
Well, you gave us a heck of a show, Tom.
Thank you.
I think that's the
mood has changed considerably here in the Penske pits, and now the race strategy is simple. Wait for 28 laps to go and then come in and take on fuel. When Tom Sneva came by here, coasting into his pits, you could see the change on everybody's face. They broke out into smiles, then they gathered it back up and said, wait a minute, the race isn't over yet.
There's Roger Penske in communication with this driver, with Rick Mears. Now with a great big lead in the race. Let's get a reaction on this from Jackie Stewart, the three-time world champion, with us as always.
Tom Sneva has just demonstrated why he's a real champion. He was driving that car even very slowly and felt a suspension or transmission problem. Had he continued at that time under the green conditions, the chances are he would have lost control of that car. This is what a racing driver has to do. He has to think. It's much more than just driving with sheer talent and natural ability. You've got to be a thinking driver, and that's why people like Tom Sneva win the Indy 500, and that's why they become old racing drivers. There aren't any brave old racing drivers around. Well done, Tom Sneva.
The 68th Indianapolis 500 from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway continues.
Rick Mears apparently breezing to victory in the Indianapolis 500, and now we get a report that there is some rain falling on the racetrack. Not all the way around, but there is rain now over the racetrack. Still under the green, Sam, but they don't allow much rain to fall before they stop things here.
Well, Rick Mears still running 200 miles an hour plus, though, Jim. And, you know, these tires, which give the car such incredible grip under ideal circumstances, are very treacherous indeed in the wet. They have no grooves in them, whatever. They are slicks. If there's any water on the road, the cars become unhandleable. I almost thought for a second I saw something on one of the lenses of our cameras. Yep. So now this is a tremendously difficult position for Mears.
It also looked like Mears wiggled a little bit coming out of that last turn.
Yeah, he did. I mean, obviously, he doesn't want to slow down dramatically, but he could lose control completely. I mean, this is a very dangerous situation for him. Of course, he is 2 laps ahead, Jim, of his own teammate.
A while ago, it looked like he would have to battle Tom Sneva on the race course, have the battle of fuel in the pits. He's eliminated those two. The only one left is the weather. As you say, with his 2-lap lead, but still he's going at tremendous speed, and it did look like he wiggled a little bit coming out of that one turn. can't take too much loose moisture on the track.
No, now this is very tough for a driver, Jim, because you can see on your visor, of course, how much rain is falling where you are. But at these speeds, and remember, you're traveling over 100 yards a second at these speeds, it is sometimes hard to pick out, especially this late in the race, what the track conditions might be in the turn ahead of you. In other words, it's a little bit oily out there right now.
Well, there's Kathy Penske, Roger's wife. She doesn't look like it's time to relax at all, and neither does Roger, by the way.
No, the emotions obviously running very, very high there.
Very much so, and no doubt in the race car, though Mears has to keep his totally under control and concentrate on the work at hand. What's it like inside that cockpit? Let's listen to Jackie Stewart.
Here at the Speedway, when the drivers go down the front straight and on the back stretch, a lot of time is spent addressing the instruments in the cockpit. Now, I'm sitting in a Chevrolet Corvette now, which is very similar to most modern cars today. They're extremely sophisticated in the inside, with many instruments and dials and knobs and switches to address. Let's have a look at some of them. Looking at it, it looks quite bland until I switch it on. Suddenly, the world lights up. And when I start the engine up, suddenly we get movement as well as color. We have analog, which means there's movement here of the rev counter, and a digital readout of the speed of the engine. But the whole dashboard itself, in fact, is a bizarre range of colors and shapes and switches and dials. Can you imagine addressing turn 1 at 215 miles an hour and having to read all of this? By comparison, the instrument panel in Al Unser's race car is stark. The steering wheel, much, much smaller, but the driver can see all of the instruments through the spokes of his steering wheel. And another difference, there are switches on the steering wheel. Here, the kill switch. If an emergency occurs, he can switch electricity off, and by pressing this button, be in two-way conversation with his pit crew. Another big difference is this steering wheel comes off. In the case of an emergency, the driver is allowed out of the car much faster. The instrument in the center of the panel is the rev counter. That's to say the engine speed. The dial on the left is for the water and oil temperature. The orange needle is oil temperature. The white needle indicates water temperature. This is the turbo boost dial. That needle will go up to the indicated yellow mark during the race. Instead of having an oil pressure gauge, we have a red warning light that will only come on when there is low oil pressure or trouble. The same applies to fuel pressure. That will only come on if there's little or no fuel left and it's not being picked up. This here, this little button, is just to check if all of those lights are working correctly. And if the driver wants no lights, he can switch this off and it cancels those too. Finally, the panic button. If the car goes on fire, the driver presses this, and fire extinguishing fluid comes all around the cockpit, allowing him time to get out. So as you can see, there's a considerable difference between the cockpit of a street car and the cockpit of a racing car. The race driver has much less to look at and much less to do. We in our street cars have got to have much more instrumentation, many more controls. For the race driver, those simply wouldn't be possible in the interests of safety and concentration. But at the same time, everything is within reach and easy sight.
Okay, the cockpit of a racing car. Rick Mears still the leader by a couple of laps over his teammate, Al Unser Sr. Al Holbert, the rookie, still in third place, one place higher than Sam Posey predicted calmly and coolly before the race that he would finish, in fact.
There's Al Sr. just in the foreground. There's Rick Mears, who seems to be going faster at this point than Al Sr.
Yeah, and he's closing in on Al Sr. Another car in between them, but that's Al Sr. up in front.
Yep.
So once again, another lap soon to his teammate.
Right, and that's Tom Goy, who's driven such a good race, staying out of everyone's way in his rookie appearance. And here comes Rick Mears, of course, into the pits.
Now, this will be his last topping off pit stop.
This should be absolutely routine, but it's just in this kind of thing, isn't it, that fiasco can occur. You know, looking at that cockpit piece, they're not changing the tires at all, just refueling. That cockpit right now for Rick Mears is like a cloister, Jim. It's warm, it's damp in there with his own sweat. I imagine he feels a oneness with the car at this point and with the task that he has ahead of him. Focus, concentration, anybody would envy Rick Mears.
Now the crowd, you hear him in the background, you see some of them waving. They're beginning to urge him on. He looks like their man. He's the one that they're going to identify with on this particular day.
A collective sense of achievement, really. Not just Rick Mears' achievement, everyone's.
That's the idea, identifying with the driver. Win or lose. There's the way they stand. Well, Rick Rayvon Mears, born in Wichita, Kansas, raised in Bakersfield, California, certainly seems on his way to winning the 1984 Indianapolis 500. 13 laps to go, however, but it would have to be something happening to his car to stop him now, because his lead is so long over everybody, and you know the second place car is his teammate, Al Unser Jr. So one way or another, the Penske people appear to be in pretty good shape in this year's race. Rick Mears likes to water ski in his spare time, fly remote-controlled planes, drive remote-controlled cars. Pretty mechanical with everything he does.
Yeah, but Jim, did you notice how many things you just mentioned? He's had dozens of hobbies.
Oh, yeah.
None of them hold his interest for very long.
Yeah.
Only racing holds his interest, and I think you can see why. But by the way, his latest toy, if you can call it that, is a radio-controlled helicopter that he bought just a couple of days before. Rick, incidentally, makes a point of keeping to himself on the morning of the race. He stays in the Speedway Motel, I do as well, and he stayed there very late this morning, having breakfast there with his girlfriend. There's Roger Penske.
Squirming nervously.
Yeah. Of course, he can't work off the tension.
No.
Rick Mears is busy. I mean, his heart rate in that car, even though he's relatively relaxed, is probably triple what it would ordinarily be. And the physical effort has been kind of measured approximately as about what it would be if you were chopping wood. Isn't that funny? Because he just seems to be sitting there.
Still.
Yeah, but there's really a lot more to it than that. Even though the movement of the circumference of the wheel is very, very small.
At age 32, Mears has driven 84 IndyCar races. Not at Indy, but IndyCar type races. So the experience is there.
He's having the kind of victory, Jim, you're interested in horses. Remember Secretariat?
Yeah.
The Belmont Stakes?
Secretariat by 31 in the Belmont.
That's right.
One of mine can do the same. Anywhere. Rick Mears. And the crowd looking on. Nobody's left for sure. 400,000 and more. His brother, you know, of course, is a race driver. Roger Mears didn't qualify this year. But let's meet that family a little bit. Seems like most people in California have vanity license plates. But one Indy 79 was earned the hard way. It stands for the victory of Rick Mears at Indianapolis in 1979. Rick is one half of a brotherly driving team. Part of a racing family, really, and a close one. Rick qualified in the first row for this year's 500. Their parents' home is the nerve center and gathering place for the Mears clan. Race driving really started with their father, Bill. Today he operates an excavating company from his backyard, but his heart is with his sons and their racing machines. This was Bill Mears and his race car as a teenager back in Kansas, a far cry from Rick and Roger's sophisticated equipment of today. As their faces and haircuts matured with the times, Rick and Roger Mears grew up. Racing was never far from their minds. Their sister admires what her brothers have done, but she doesn't want to be a passenger on their bandwagon.
I went for one ride with Roger on a motorcycle, and I will never get on a motorcycle with him. He really scared me.
Well, I hid a few times and shut the curtains when things like that were going on. You know, I think, I don't want to look at that anymore.
I was kind of always messing around, getting in trouble, you know, for one thing. It seemed like I always got caught at everything. He never did. I was a little sneakier than he was.
Roger is the older brother by 4.5 years. He came to Indy later than his little brother, making his first appearance in 1982. Unfortunately, he did not make the race this year. He started racing in go-karts, then motorcycles, then stock cars. But off-road racing brought him his greatest success. First in dune buggies, then bigger four-wheel drive vehicles. Rick first tagged along, then joined his brother in off-road racing. At one stretch, between the two of them, they won 20 of 27 main events in sprint buggy competition. In the rugged world of off-road, Rick developed a philosophy that serves him well at Indy. To finish first, you must first finish. He came to the Speedway in 1978, was named Co-Rookie of the Year. The next year came his great victory, starting on the pole, then winning the race. It's quite a family, all right. Whatever the occasion, whatever the terrain, the Mears gang will find something to ride on. And that goes for Mom and Dad as well as the brothers. Roger and his wife Carol have 2 sons. The youngest, Casey, already racing on dirt bikes. Racing tends to become a family tradition. Brothers like the Mears and the Unsers, fathers and sons like the Bettenhausens, Vukoviches, Parsons, Unsers, and Andrettis. But none seems to have more plain fun out of the speed business than the Mears family of Bakersfield, California. Rick talked about it.
As far as any other brother teams go, I don't think there's any other brother teams in it like we are.
No.
Any others we've seen have been farther apart in the racing from each other, and they're as far apart from each other as they are from the rest of the teams, the other drivers. Well, we've always been very, very close, and we've enjoyed racing with each other. And we've been racing against each other and with each other since day one. And we've grown up with it, and we're closer, I think, than any other brother team's going.
The Mears is at Bakersfield. The last race, by the way, is in the Los Angeles Coliseum, wasn't it? Looked like racing around somebody's house. There's Roger Penske and Karen Unser, Al Unser Sr.'s wife.
Right, we visited them recently out in Albuquerque. They make their home. There's Rick Mears. Still running very, very fast, but Jim, it's not because he's forcing the car or jeopardizing its reliability at all. Keeping his rhythm up, and this cool air that's swept across the track here is making the high speeds possible.
I don't think it's raining out there anymore, by the way. Looks to be all right. So Rick Mears, holding that lead, has 5 laps to go. 5 laps to go, and he'll win his second Indianapolis 500. We'll witness it. 4 laps to go in the Indianapolis 500 of 1984, and Rick Mears is, well, breezing along with the breeze. No problems evident anywhere, in the pits or on the race course. The second place car, his teammate, Al Unser, more than a lap behind. Nobody is going to be able to catch him or even come close to him. He's just got to finish the course now. Interesting that Roger Penske, the meticulous preparer of cars, has another race, type of race car running for him today.
Well, exactly, because in the first 2 races of this season before Indianapolis, his own Penske cars, Jim, broke down. Both of them broke down. He's 0 for 4, so to speak, this year. So he made the decision to switch to these marches, which he got very late in the game. There's Penske's wife. You can feel the emotion there. She's with Rick Mears' parents. You see his mother on the left. As they're just counting the laps that are going by, that thread of rain that we felt a few minutes ago. You see the extent of the emotion. Maybe it's almost harder to control joy, Jim, than a feeling of tragedy.
Sometimes, talking about Penske changing cars, it takes, I think, a highly intelligent man to face the reality that the cars he spent hundreds of thousands of dollars developing for this year simply aren't good enough, and to have to scrap them and go out and buy somebody else's race cars. But that's, I think, a function of intelligence.
Well, right, and Roger didn't get where he is, and I've known him for many years, by letting his emotions overrule logic. He's an extremely logical man.
The March cars that we're talking about have totally dominated this race. What is it? I think 29 or 30 of the 33 cars that started are Marches made in England. But the driver was made in America.
Here is the very best March of the day. And if you're wondering why he's still running so fast, Jim, with the end virtually in sight, you don't want to lose your rhythm. It's really safer to keep running at full speed than to slow down. You mentioned earlier something about a golfer. When he tries to play defensively,
doesn't work.
You may lose the whole thing. So Rick Mears, very wise, I say, to keep his foot in it here. Running well up in the 199 range right now.
Penske getting tenser with each lap, I think. Yeah. A 1-2 finish is almost too much to hope for. There's the white flag. Rick Mears has 1 lap to go. 1 lap to go to win his second Indianapolis 500. At the age of 32, he won in 1979. 5 years later, he is on his way to victory again.
Boy, would he like to win this one, because there were many that said the first...
There's his mother.
There's his mother, Rick's mother. Many of them said that the first one he won here was a little bit of a fluke. He was still so new to the game. This one's no fluke at all.
No question about that. And then, of course, he almost won another in that breathtaking finish with Gordon Johncock, where he lost by 16 100ths of a second.
Very little of this race to go, Jim, and I think it's going to come in just before it rains.
Crowd waving to him, the applause growing, the checkered flag for Rick Mears. He's won the Indianapolis 500 with a hand in the air.
Yep, hand in the air.
There's his father. And Al Unser, who we believe to be finishing second in the race. There's been some confusing on the scoring system at the racetrack here about that. We believe Al Unser is second, but there still with that hand in the air is Rick Mears. Kathy Penske more emotional than Rick's parents.
Yep, as I said, it's so hard, that joy, you're almost not ready for that emotion. It is that strong. And a big thumbs up from Rick Mears.
We'll be back.
Well, Rick Mears, it seemed to be an effortless run for you today.
Well, yeah, none of them are effortless. You do have to work at it, but the guys just did a tremendous job on a Pennzoil car, and it never missed a beat all day long. And they got me in and out on some good, clean pit stops, so it really made my job pretty easy. We just had to keep our head on straight and stay out of trouble all day, and that's what we did, and it just worked out perfect.
When Sneva dropped out of the race, were you aware of it, and what were your thoughts?
Yes, I was aware of it, and I was sorry for him, but it was a relief for me because he was my toughest competitor. And I really figured we were going to have a heads-up battle right at the end of the race, and really going to be a good, close, tough show. But he had his problem, and so that enabled me to kind of cruise the rest of the way, which I'm not going to complain about.
This is your second Indy 500 victory. Does it feel as great as your first one?
I tell you what, I think it feels better because the first one I was still pretty new at it, and I didn't realize exactly what it all meant, but and it took a week to soak in. This one's soaking in already, and I'm very happy.
And your mom and dad are here. Where are they? They were right over here on the side. They've got to be thrilled.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just very thrilled for the team, especially because we've been down. Like I say, we had a little bit of a low year last year and a low year to begin with now. And we knew if we got competitive, we could get the job done, and the guys did it for me.
Well, will you go back to the Penske design now, or will you stay with the March for a while?
Well, we got to go home and discuss that.
I doubt if Rick is thinking of much now except for the exhilaration of his great drive, but there are other delights that go with an Indy win. The purse this year is expected to be a new record, and although the official amounts will not be disclosed until tomorrow, it should work out like this. Rick Mears, about $400,000. Second place, about $180,000. Now again to Jack Arute. Jack?
Skip Mears, you've got to be excited and thrilled with this 500 victory for your son.
Am I excited and am I thrilled? What do you do with a son like that? Let me tell you that. He does everything that way. He's a winner.
We watched you here in Victory Lane with about 15 laps to go, and you walked back and forth. You looked like a caged little animal. What was going through your mind?
Well, I don't ever say anything or do anything until that black flag comes down and that race is over. I've learned the checkered flag, and I learned it a long time ago. Pardon me for being so excited, but I learned it a long time ago, so I just hope, and I did a lot of praying, and let me tell you, I think that's what does it.
Well, Bill Mears, your husband corrected you when you said black flag and said, no, it's the checkered flag. Bill, you seem to be pretty dialed into what was going on today. Got to be pleased.
Yes, real well. We was up in the suites with Insul 4 people, and we just couldn't believe it. He was just running 202, 204, and we just knew that we all had a good feeling that he was going to win.
What does it mean to a father to have a son be an Indy 500 champion? Just emotions, too tough to describe. A former driver yourself, Bill.
Right now it's just after the checkered flag has dropped. Penske Power has won again at Indianapolis. Very impressive. The preparation of the Penske team is good as ever. After 2 failures in the early part of this season, he made a very courageous choice. He put away cars of his own name on them and brought out the March cars. They've won this race, the world's most important race, and they've won it with a great driver. Rick Mears drove with the calm, the calculation of a man of enormous experience. He was quiet for the month of May. Everyone else was getting a boost, but he was confident. He's come through today with a car that really handled well. It could drive almost anywhere on the racetrack, but it was his experience and knowledge that brought it in to win. There were 3 rookies, however, in the top 5. That's always very nice for me to see new blood coming along, but it's also correct to see experience actually winning. Roberto Guerrero, for me, was incredibly efficient. He came in after his spin. He went out, he didn't like the way the car was handling, he came in to get it checked, just to be sure, and went out again to finish up top there. He also stalled his engine, incidentally, through inexperience perhaps in one of his pit stops. A.J. Foyt finished 6th, terrific. Al Unser Jr., tremendous. Michael Andretti, tremendous. Great to look for the future. Pat Bedard, by the way, as I speak to you right now, is in Methodist Hospital. He's got a fractured jaw. He is alert and awake in compos mentis, but he has severe concussion. Gordon Johncock, as I speak to you right now, is in surgery at Methodist Hospital with his ankle being attended to. Well, a very eventful Indianapolis. A great victory for him, for that man of the Penske Power, Rick Mears. Now, let's have a look at the provisional, unofficial standings at this time. Now, it will not be until 8 o'clock tomorrow morning before official results are posted. So what we are giving you, as I say again, are unofficial. We have Rick Mears winning the Indy 500 of 1984. We have Al Unser Sr. finishing 2nd and Roberto Guerrero of Colombia, a rookie, finishing 3rd. Al Holbert, as Sam Posey forecast, finished 4th. And Michael Andretti finished 5th. In 6th position, the great A.J. Foyt. Bobby Rahal was 7th, Herm Johnson was 8th, Danny Ongayas was 9th, and Jose Ligarza from Mexico was 10th. George Snyder, Firestone, Holmes, Gloy, a rookie, and Kneifel was back there in 15th. Sneva, Andretti, Braden, C. Carter, and Kogan finished 20th. The rest of the field, as they were mostly retiring, having trouble during this day of the 200 laps of this 2.5 mile oval. And making up the final 3 was Gelhausen, Fittipaldi, and Brabham. Poor man only did 1 lap. Now, we had a new record average speed by the winner, 163 miles per hour. That beat the old record set in 1972 by the late Mark Donohue. Ironically, he was also driving a Penske-entered car. Records are made to be broken. So these official results will not be posted until 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. But we've had a great day at Indianapolis.
Well, all of that was earlier today. We're live again now. It's almost 11 o'clock at night, Indianapolis time. Out here on the race course, in the silence and the chill air, and it's beginning to sprinkle again. By the way, on that business of who finished 2nd and who finished 3rd, at this hour we are told that the Speedway has Guerrero 2nd, Al Unser 3rd, and Mears, of course, the winner. But the results are not official until 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, so there's still a possibility that 2nd and 3rd could change. But unquestionably, Rick Mears has won the race. We're going to go now live to Methodist Hospital for our late report. Here's Larry Nuber.
Thanks, Jim. Well, Jackie outlined the injuries to Pat Bedard. Pat is resting comfortably. His condition has been upgraded to stable from the serious that it was originally today. Gordy Johncock, perhaps just a bit worse than we first expected. He does have a fracture of the left ankle. He was operated on tonight. He, too, is in stable condition, but also resting comfortably. Jim?
Okay, the news basically as good as it can be at this hour from Methodist Hospital. Rick, congratulations. Here is the champion of the 1984 Indianapolis 500. We heard your immediate reaction. You were watching with me as your mother and father gave their reaction. You've had a little time to reflect. It's almost 9 hours now since you won as we stand here in the rain. Any new thoughts?
Well, I'm grateful to have parents that I have and that have supported me the way they have. And it's still soaking in right now. I'm overjoyed.
Well, we saw in the up close and personal what a close family you have. You and brother Roger. You got to get one of these for Roger one day, huh?
Absolutely. And I tell you what, I've raced against him all my life, and he's probably beat me more times than I beat him. So that can tell you, if he ever gets in some good equipment, gets out here on this racetrack and can show what he can do, he's going to be tough, very tough.
After 9 hours, you begin thinking about any near things that happened out there, what might have been.
Yeah, you do. You know, all the time. You always do that. And I had a couple close calls today, but I was very fortunate that they went my way. And
recall what they were?
Well, the main one, I guess, was with Michael Andretti coming out of the pits. He was pitted at the far end, and when I came out, we had a very close call. I just I had a speed built up, and there was nothing I could do. I just had to go on with it, and I was committed. So
we were fortunate that it worked out the way it was, and I had a couple of close calls like that in '79, the year we won it then. So
it all worked out finally in the end again.
Yes.
Again, congratulations
Thank
to
you. Thank you
Rick
very
Mears has won his second Indianapolis 500. Almost 11 o'clock here. We'll say goodnight. I'm Jim McKay.